All right, everybody, welcome back to the Film Tangents podcast. We were just discussing how we are completely immune to
Yeah, we're
criticism on
perfect.
Film Tangents
Yeah.
because we are both a movie podcast and a comedy podcast. So if you say that we suck at reviewing movies, we can just say it's a comedy podcast. We're just goofing.
Yeah.
And then if people say that we're not
We're
funny,
not funny.
we can be like, it's a movie podcast, dude. Like, we just review movies.
We're impervious to criticism, dude.
Yeah, we're immune.
Yeah, we have so much. We have like such
Um,
a big shield.
yeah,
It
and then if
just-
someone says we suck at movie reviews and we're not funny, then we can just say, well, we're still learning.
yeah,
Like, leave us
we're still
alone.
growing. It's like that
We're still,
military.
we're still.
That formation they used to do where it's like an old shield formation all around, and then just like the
Yeah,
spears
like in
poking out.
300.
Yeah, I feel like that's what this show
Yeah,
is. It's like you can't penetrate this show.
yeah, you can't get to us,
You
man.
can't get to us.
Yeah, we're just that wall of Spartans, Leonidas. Dude, we're
She-
Xerxes can't fucking penetrate this wall.
She's sold by the who were those like architects like Michelangelo and shit? Those guys that made those like statues in Rome. It's like that's us, dude.
Clink, 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 clink.
Welcome
I
back
look
to
at
the
those
show.
statues and I'm like, how does anyone
How?
carve that?
Especially
I was at the Met in New York and like last fall,
yeah.
and I was walking past like those Greek sculptures. I was like, how do you do this? How the hell does this? Right, and the Egyptian ones too.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you carve that?
Especially
It's so
because
detailed.
with those ones, they would just start with like a block. It would just be like a
Yeah,
marble block, like block. And it's like, oh dude, and
yeah,
it's like there's an episode of SpongeBob. Shouts out to SpongeBob, it's the greatest show of all time, at least the first 3 seasons.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
there's an episode of SpongeBob where Squidward is teaching a class, like an art class. It's like teaching people how to paint, and it's like in a bunch of it's like in a bunch of these disciplines. And then the big one in the end is the making like a stone, making one of those like marble figures.
Yeah.
And that's like the big challenge. But for Squidward, it's like the thing that petrifies him. It's like at what angle, like where do you start, like where? Because at some point you have to start chipping at it.
Yeah.
And SpongeBob is just like naturally gifted, like he's such like a naturally like gifted like guy.
Oh
And
yeah.
he just like clear like SpongeBob just like goes at it like once at the right spot, and it just makes into this beautiful like piece.
That's
But
funny.
yeah, yeah,
Dude, whenever my girlfriend says something just completely out of context, I'll be like, "Is that from SpongeBob?" And she'll be like, "Yeah,
yeah.
it
SpongeBob's
is."
the show, dude. That's the show.
Yeah,
Love
she
SpongeBob.
grew up on SpongeBob. She's a
Yeah.
big SpongeBob
Did you not? Were you not
person.
like a SpongeBob enjoyer?
I was not. I didn't. Yeah, I've watched it like when you and I would watch it sometimes, like late at night in the apartment,
Yeah,
or sometimes my girlfriend and I'll put it on. Like if we
yeah.
want to wind down or something,
Dude, this is
just to
shit. Yeah,
shut our brains off.
because
Yeah, it's, it's
'cause
great. Those
I,
early seasons.
yeah, I know you guys have been watching How I Met Your Mother, which I want to follow up with you on that because we haven't touched on
Oh,
that
I
for a
finished
while.
that, so I can. Yeah, I meant to. I finished it like weeks ago. I need to. Yeah, I've been meaning to get to that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, but
Don't let me forget
yeah,
that.
she's had you on that like steady 2000s diet, dude. It's like fucking
Yeah,
How I Met Your Mother,
yeah.
SpongeBob,
Oh,
classics.
for sure. Yeah, but I didn't. I grew up on cartoons, but it was Cartoon Network mostly. I was like a Cartoon Network kid.
Yeah,
Like I watched. I think we've talked about this before when we talked about cartoons, but it was like for me, like my SpongeBob was like Chowder. That was my
yeah, yeah. I
SpongeBob
didn't
because
grow
that
up with
that was
Chowder.
one of the writers of SpongeBob created Chowder, so it's very SpongeBob-esque, and it has a similar, just hyper creativity and like weird kind of psychedelia. Like every episode, you don't know what the hell you're gonna get.
Yeah,
They're very similar shows. Like
yeah,
I've watched like when I have seen like some of the old SpongeBob episodes, I'll be like, "Oh, that's like a Chowder joke,"
Mhm.
like it'll just I can you could tell the writer was like, had was kind of in training for Chowder
Mhm.
later.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was like what I grew up on, like all the Cartoon Network stuff. Even before Chowder, it was like Foster's Home,
Yeah, that
um,
yeah, that's the
Camp
thing.
Lazlo.
I didn't grow up with, like, many of those Cartoon Network shows, like, I couldn't tell you, like I know that there's some that you and I have some crossover with, like, with Generator Rex and stuff like that,
Ben
but
10,
yeah, and Ben 10, but all of those
yeah.
other ones, like Shouter and, like, all those other ones, I maybe I watched, like, maybe 10 minutes, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now Chowder's great. Chowder made me. I think Chowder was like because that came on when I was like premiered when I was like 8 or 9, and for a while I wanted to be a cartoonist, and it
Mm,
was I think Chowder was like the catalyst for that.
yeah,
It was so very just a really creative show, very inspiring to a kid.
yeah.
I know Damo Genesis from Odd Future, the rapper. He really loves Chowder. He mentions it in a few songs.
Yeah, you're a Dawn Genesis guy, the only guy that I know that's a Dawn Genesis guy.
I like him, man. He's in that camp of like non-trap kind of
Yeah,
rappers.
don't people give that guy no
He's it.
credit. Like, I hear no,
Yeah.
like, in all, like, the music circles that I follow and, like, all the conversations that I've been privy to, nobody ever mentions that guy, ever. I never hear his name being
Mm-mm.
mentioned. You mentioning him reminds me that he exists. Otherwise, I would
Yeah,
not
yeah.
remember that that guy exists.
Yeah, he's great. I always liked him even back like when he was in Odd Future. I always liked him quite a bit. Like when he would have a verse, I would get excited because he always had some fire verses. But he's like in that sort of camp of like him and Earl still collaborate.
Mm,
I think no, Damo has a joint tape with Alchemist.
mm.
So and then Earl's featured on it and Currency's featured on
So
it,
he
I
still has the
think. And I know
connects.
so yeah, they all yeah, so he's in that kind of stoner rap camp.
Mm.
Um, but anyway, we'll more on rap later, I suppose. But this week's movie, everybody don't forget to like the video,
Subscribe to the channel.
comment below, subscribe to the channel. If you're on Apple Podcast, subscribe there, please. And whatever platform you listen to us on, be sure to hit that bell notification so you're notified whenever we release new episodes.
Yes, we
New
appreciate it very
episodes on
much.
YouTube. Yeah, new episodes drop on YouTube Mondays, Apple Podcast Tuesdays. Um, movie of this week is the action adventure classic from 1999, directed by Steven Sommers, starring Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, Arnold Vosloo. Um, it is The Mummy. Um, just a classic, a very loose remake of the 1932 Universal original. Um, they were trying to make this forever, dude.
Mm,
You go into the trivia, pretty much every like big horror director under the sun at the time, like in the late 80s, early 90s, was came in to try to get this made for Universal or Universal brought in. Um, Originally, Clive Barker of Hellraiser fame was gonna make this. He wrote like a treatment for it.
would be interesting.
It yeah, it was like, which I wonder if they kept some of the ideas because the way Imhotep in this movie regenerates by taking people's skin, that is directly from Hellraiser. That's what Frank does in Hellraiser when
Mhm,
he
mhm.
regenerates by sucking,
Yeah, I found that very
by
interesting.
taking people's blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wonder if that was just a coincidence or if that was an idea that Clive Barker had to bring over into The Mummy and then that stuck. I don't know. But and then George Romero
Hmm.
of the Night of the Living Dead trilogy, he tried to get it made. Joe Dante tried to get it made. Joe Dante's the Gremlins director, I think.
Yeah. It's a whole circus of
Mick
dudes.
Garris, and then Wes Craven even, and none of them got it made. It ended up going to Steven
But somehow
Summers.
his ass got it made. somehow.
Yeah, and this was like his, I think, one of his first big movies. I think he did like one. I think it was called Deep Rising in the '90s. I've never seen it, but it was some kind of ocean sci-fi horror movie. But what are your thoughts, man, after your rewatch of The Mummy?
Yeah, well, this no, like you said, he did Deep Rising, 1998. So it was like right in the feet, right, like right at the feet of the of this movie, because then this movie came out in '99. And he
Hmm.
went on to do the fucking Van Helsing movie, and then I guess he hasn't done anything since that GI Joe:
He
The Rise of
did,
Cobra movie.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
guess I
GI
was
Joe, and then he did the Mummy
yeah,
sequels.
he did
Well, he
sequels.
did Mummy Returns, and then Tomb of the Dragon Emperor was different director, but he did
Yeah,
the story for that
but
one.
he also did the
But yeah, I
Scorpion
don't know what
King.
he did after. Yeah, yeah, that's right. I don't know what he's done after the GI Joe movies,
Seemingly nothing. He doesn't
other
have
than
like
keep producing
yeah,
the Scorpion King movies, because those weirdly became a whole franchise in and of themselves. The Scorpion King, there's like 5 or 6 of those or
really, yeah, there
something,
is. There's a bunch of them. Yeah,
and
he's a
they're all like
producer.
just direct to video.
Yeah,
But so the franchise kind of lives on. Like it's crazy when you think about it,
yeah.
but in a weird spin-offy way. It's kind of weird.
And there was a Cruise, like Tom Cruise movie, that he's credited as the original writer for. I think just because of this, because that's
Uh,
like a spin-off of this movie, that Tom Cruise Mummy movie. But yeah, interesting career for sure.
I'll
But
never watch that
for
Tom
me, this
Cruise
was
one.
the say what?
I'll never watch
Oh
that
no,
Tom
no, I'll
Cruise
never
one,
watch
dude.
that.
Apparently, that's, like, one of the worst screenplays of all time, just, like, because 'cause I'm sure the studio came in and butchered it.
oh
I'm
for
sure it's
sure,
not Steven's, like, original
for sure.
thing. Um, yeah. I mean, just the like, I remember because that movie came out when, like, our 2nd year of college or
2017.
something,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I remember watching the commercials for it and just being like just seeing the mummy herself, I was like, "It looks like a sexy Halloween costume."
It
Like,
did.
it's just this, like, hot woman with
Yeah, it
bandages,
was a lady
with,
from
like,
John Wick.
toilet paper.
I remember there was a lady
Oh,
from John Wick, like that, like assassin lady that he fights like in the second or first one. I don't remember, but you cast her and she was the one.
she was the mummy?
Yeah, it was her.
Was she was in the John Wick movies?
Yeah, she was in the John Wick movies. 100%.
I don't remember her.
100%. She
Huh.
was like that lady with like a weird foot, or like she was in the movie. I don't remember like what she did in that movie, but she was in the movie.
Hmm,
She was there. What's her name? Annabelle Wiles, is that who she is? No, that's somebody else. Whatever. She was in there though. She was in the John Wick movie because I recognized her. I was like, oh, that's that lady. Um, Let me see. No, I was wrong. She's in the Kingsman movies. That's where she was. Those Kingsman,
okay.
the Secret Service movies. That's where it is. Yeah, somehow I got those
Gotcha.
movies mixed up. But yeah, The Mummy. This is my third time watching this movie overall. I had seen this movie actually not too long ago. I think I saw this like maybe like 6 months ago, maybe. Like for the second time. I mentioned it here when I watched it again. And then I watched it last night again for the third time. So I've watched this movie now 3 times. And my opinion of it is kind of the same as what it was when I first mentioned it a few months ago. Which is that it's just like a really like fun romp, right? It's like
Yeah.
you get this like backstory real quick of Emotep and then when what this means for him, right? Which I think the word Emotep means something. I forget what it means. What does it mean?
Well, it's a name from, ancient Egypt. Like, the real Imhotep was the architect of the pyramids, I believe. He had no is like no relation
Yeah,
to the high priest version of the character, but
yeah.
he was like some kind of genius architect from ancient Egypt that designed the pyramids or something like that,
It
I
says the
think.
name Emotep means the one who comes in peace.
Oh,
Although I
not
don't
in
think
this movie.
no, not this movie. I don't think that adds nothing to this movie. He
I
doesn't
see
come in
I see what you're
peace.
saying. Yeah, you're right. Because all those, ancient names, like, mean something. I
Yeah,
mean, I think every name means
every
something,
name
but
means something.
anyway.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
whatever. But they give us a backstory for him, and it's like this like little like weird tragic stuff where the lady has to kill herself, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna do this ceremony to revive her, and then like just as he's doing it, they like get him, and it's like, ah, rats, they got me again, no like
Yeah.
plotting, and then obviously they mummify him and they put all those critters in there, and they're just like, oh, this guy's gonna be eaten alive forever, and then we go to the present, and we have the man, the myth, the legend himself. um,
Or Brendan Fraser, the
Brendan,
Just, dude.
Brendan Fraser, the brave in this movie.
Yeah. Before he was the whale.
Yeah. But
Dude, I would give anything for someone to digitally edit in the whale version of Brendan Fraser into this whole movie. Can you imagine that? That'd be amazing.
Yes. But again, Brendan Fraser, and he's there, and they attack him, and blah blah blah, and they kind of set up the whole thing with him and that other guy. I forget his name. The guy with a little mustache.
Benny.
Yeah, they set up this back and forth with Benny because that's where we get introduced to both of them. And Brendan Fraser survives through the skin of his teeth because of Imhotep, because they see the figure, and then Imhotep has the whole like face in the sand thing happens, which always reminds me of Spider-Man 3.
Yes, that is true.
Like it always reminds me of Spider-Man 3. And then the sand like plays with Brendan Fraser a little bit, like swipes at him. And then we cut to the library scene, which I think one of the things that I want to say about this movie, like in a positive sense, is that I really love just kind of like the playful adventure feeling of this movie. Like this movie
Yeah.
never takes itself super seriously, and it's always like performing this balancing act between action and comedic relief and kind of gags. It's not even like comedy and seriousness, because there's no seriousness to this movie really. Like this movie's never like in a mode of like, this is serious business, this is serious stuff. Like it doesn't really come across that way. To me it just either feels like this is important action, or just action in general, and there's gags, and physical comedy and physical pieces. And I really love that about this movie. Just it has so much levity and so much like fun to it, because then you cut from all that situation, and then you go to Rachel Weisz's character. I forget the name of her character in the movie, but you cut to her character, and she's in the library, and then they do that gag with her, like almost falling down those stairs, that step ladder, and then all the shelves fall, and it's just kind of this domino effect. It's really hilarious because seeing this for the third time, I'm like, why were they even in such a way where that would happen? Like why would you guys do that? So it's all fun and games, and like everything gets introduced through these gags. Like it doesn't feel like, even when you have exposition, like where her brother comes in and he's there in the coffin with the mummy, and he kind of shows her like, oh, I found this thing and here's some app, even when you have this kind of like moments that are leading to exposition that are basically like, this is the scene that needs to get us to the next scene. Even when we have those scenes, it doesn't feel like exposition or dragged out or just like unfun. It always feels fun. And it always feels like we're being introduced to information in the most like, not even in the most like straightforward or quick way, but in the most like fun and interesting and exciting way. Like, oh, look at this, this is intriguing and it's fun.
Yeah.
And then we go to Brendan Fraser, and how are we gonna get him out of jail? It's like all these little complications. He's in jail, and they're gonna hang him up, and so she needs to kind of do this like thing with that guy, like the jailer, like holder main guy,
Like doing an auction.
Yeah, exactly. He's an auction for his life.
Basically.
Yeah.
I love that shit too when he says she says 30% and he says 25.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he had the 30% and then he's like 25. And she's like, deal.
But that's the funny thing about this movie, because it's like this movie's like an exercise, almost like the movie Midnight Run. I would compare this to Midnight Run. This movie's like an exercise in finding the most interesting way to introduce the characters wanting something, and then also finding the most interesting way of complicating that, and just
Yep.
letting everybody have fun, and just letting those gags and those moments and those scenes complete themselves, just reach a climactic, like, little moment within the scenes. And I really find that, like, I find that to be the strength above all of this movie.
Yeah, it's so efficient. Like, I can't believe to this day that this movie is only 2 hours.
Yeah, it
I
is. I thought
always
it was
thought
longer.
every time I think about this movie or go to if I haven't seen it in a while, like, I'll be like, "Oh, that's like a 2 and a
It's like
half
a two and
hour
a half,
movie, right?"
3 hour movie. It's 2 hours,
It's
like
2
clean,
hours flat,
like 2 hours.
and
Yeah.
it's incredible. And well, and I paused right when the credits started, and it was like an hour 57, so
Hmm.
it's not even 2 hours, it's like a few minutes shy,
Yeah.
and it's incredible because not only that, but you don't see the mummy until an hour in,
Hmm.
and I have never in my life felt like, "Oh, I didn't get enough mummy in that movie." Like, you get
You get a lot.
quite a bit of
You get a
him,
lot of
and lots of mummies too, which we'll
Yeah.
talk about that, but it's such an efficient movie. Like, I agree with you, that is its biggest strength. It was just so efficient,
Yeah.
um but yeah, like, he really did a great job, and like you said, that swashbuckling, that's the term I would use. It's like a
Yeah.
swashbuckling adventure where it's like you're right, all the action scenes, the characters treat it almost, especially Brendan Fraser, because he's just like the brave hero. He treats it like it's almost like a really important football game, like it's like the Super Bowl,
Yeah. I'm
where it's
laughing
like
because you
it's
said Brendan
important, but it's
Fraser
not
is the
life.
brave.
Yeah, Sir Brendan. Everybody, right now, go look up Sir Brendan Fraser the
The
Just
Just.
and thank
Yeah.
us later.
But for
But
anybody listening to this section of the podcast, thank you for listening.
yeah,
Please leave in the comments Brendan Fraser the Brave, and just let everybody else be confused. If you're
yeah,
here listening to this part of the video, like 20 some minutes in, go in the comments and just write Brendan Fraser the Brave. Just do that.
yeah. Please
Keep going.
do it. Hell yes. But yeah, I always love the opening is superb. Like the soundtrack for this movie and the sound design. I think this movie won an Oscar for sound design, if I'm
Mm,
not mistaken,
let me
like
look that
best
up.
sound design.
Yeah.
Well deserved. Just all the different, like, the wind sounds, the mummy roars and squeals and screeches, the souls kind of doing that, like, shimmering, like
Yeah. It
when
was
they're
nominated,
resurrecting
but it didn't.
somebody.
It was nominated, but it didn't win.
Okay,
Yeah.
should have won because I don't know what its competition was off the top of my head, but yeah, the sound design's impeccable. Just whether it's just wind blowing or a monster roaring or whatever it is,
Hmm.
amazing. And yeah, I love the opening's like a brilliant homage to the original 1930s film too. 'Cause, you haven't seen the Boris Karloff one from 1932, have you?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so that's like it's basically a remake of Bela Lugosi's Dracula, but just with a mummy in Egypt, essentially. Um, with like some other a couple altered plot details, but like the mummy story, the Imhotep story, it's always been very similar to Dracula in the sense that it's this undead creature who is now projecting his long lost lover onto a modern day woman
Hmm.
and trying to resurrect his long
Yes.
lost lover. It's the
Yeah.
same story
Yeah.
basically.
Nosferatu.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. But it's a great homage because they have some similar shots, like that shot where they're holding Imhotep up and wrapping him in
Hmm.
the gauze. That's they took that straight from the original.
Hmm.
The mummified alive scene was always horrifying when it cuts. It like fades into that, and it's just that underground like embalming room,
Hmm.
and they just got all the guys kind of strapped, and they're just cutting their tongues
Yeah,
off,
they
or
could have
like
sung.
you just hear them like ah, ah. It feels like a classy Saw film
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
Like it just that dude. When I was a kid, I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, holy crap.
Which that is the interesting thing about this movie, right? And about this period. because around this period of time, you have guys like, like him and like Raimi, right? Who are making these like family friendly movies, like Spider-Man and
Yeah.
so on. And the movies just have this like horror element,
Yeah.
because that's the thing with this movie. This movie has those moments. It has a moment like the first time that Imhotep comes to life and he takes the guy's eyes,
Oof.
and it's just like this horrifying scene. And then he's like walking around, this like just this like grotesque like creature. So it's like you have these moments in these movies of just like literal, just like horror, like literally just scary, like really like dark scenes within what it is essentially like a PG-13 movie.
Yep. Yeah, this was I saw this movie for the first time when I was about 9, and I remember this was the scariest movie I had seen at 9 years old,
Yeah,
and I remember just being shocked, like, it scared the shit out of me. I loved it. I fell
yeah,
in love with this movie immediately as a kid.
yeah,
Like, this movie was a huge I had always liked horror, and, like, I loved the Goosebumps books at a very young age, and monsters, like, I liked the old Universal monster movies and such, but I would say this movie really was a big catalyst in, my love for horror, like, just really falling in love with that genre.
yeah.
Um, but yeah. Yeah, it's very just horror infused action.
Yes.
Um, yeah, it's good stuff, man. And I wanted to say, like, I've always loved the suspense, like, the way they build to seeing the monster,
Yeah,
like all great monster films, the movie, it makes you thirst to see the monster, then quenches that thirst. It's like that slow burn towards seeing Imhotep for the first time.
hmm,
It's never boring. You got this whole build up, like you were talking about, with these very efficient scenes that keep escalating the
hmm.
tension, um, and showing these folks going on this adventure.
That
And
one guy just keeps telling them like, please leave, get out. We've been protecting
yeah,
this place
yeah.
for centuries. Please just leave it alone. That one guy just being like,
I'll get
please.
it. Yeah, and I'm gonna get into that
Okay.
because I have some issues with that. But
Mm-mm-mm.
and by the way, I'm just gonna go ahead and say, like, this is a pretty much perfect movie, but I do have like nitpicks. But
Yeah,
it just my I don't it might be nostalgia goggles, but I think it's also just a quality that this movie hits, that even its flaws don't even drag the score down for me, because it's just I find it to be that well made.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it steadily builds like a roller coaster, and like I said, you never feel cheated. Like, I feel like we get enough Imhotep, just the right amount, because you don't want to see him all the time. He would lose the fear factor. But nowadays, the mummy would have shown up at the 20-minute mark.
yeah,
In
100%.
a movie nowadays.
100%. And the funny thing is that they don't make these movies anymore. They don't make what essentially
No,
boils down to a swashbuckling action, adventure, comedy, horror movie. Like that, all of those things, they don't exist anymore.
no, they're like, oh well, they're like, we're either gonna make you know an action movie,
Hmm.
but if we're gonna make something with horror, which is what this movie is, it's a monster movie.
Yeah,
Let's figure out how to make it on a micro budget so we can make 50 times its budget back at the box office.
right,
That's all. Like, yeah, they don't do these grand horror films anymore.
right. They don't do that, or they don't do. They also don't do just like this, like cross genre films, because everything has to. These days, everything just has to like. I don't know if it is just like a marketing thing that people don't know how to market like movies that are just kind of like a little bit off kilter. But it's like these days,
Yeah,
everything just has to fit within a genre. Like everything, it has to be like either you're making a horror movie or you're not making it. It's like either you're making this or you're not making that. Either you're making an action movie, and if it's action, then it's John Wick kind of shit. But it's not gonna be anything other than that. It's like we've kind of gotten to like a very kind of like boilerplate approach to what gets greenlit.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, they don't do mashups anymore, and I'm so happy because I love writing mashups.
Yeah.
And I was in a kind of this is unrelated, but in the literary world, there's actually mashups are becoming a big thing. Like, I saw it last year. Like, I read like Mask of Flies. It's a crime horror mashup. It's like Heat meets Evil Dead kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I was talking to a literary agent a few months ago, and she said like that's a big thing she sees in the literary world right now is mashups becoming a thing. And I was like, hell yes, I got one for
That's
you.
in the horizon. Yeah,
150,000 words.
good,
Yeah. But
good.
anyway, uh, yeah. But yeah, and I was going through my positives too. Like Rick and Evelyn, they work really
They work
well
really well.
as an
Yeah,
Indiana Jones style couple. First, kind of repulsed by each other, but completing one another. Right? Like Rick helps Evelyn find her adventurous side and confidence, and Evelyn helps Rick become more measured and tactful
yeah.
and intelligent. Well, he's very
He's
intelligent,
very
but she
intelligent.
helps him become more measured, I guess.
Yeah,
Um, you see glimpses. They do it really well too. Like you see glimpses of it, like when they're all fighting over that who gets to dig at the Anubis statue.
hmm,
And they all have the guns pointed at each
yes,
other.
yeah,
And Evelyn kind of puts her hand on Rick's arm and is like, "There's other places to dig," and like
yeah,
you see the beginnings of it. Like
yeah.
it's a great dynamic.
Yes.
Um, and I've said this on other episodes, but I think The Mummy is the best Indiana Jones film, and it's not even an Indiana Jones film, but it might as well be.
It's difficult for
Um,
me to debate that with you as somebody who's only seen two of them, but maybe we can have that conversation at a different time. But
there's
just
only
ex-
three good ones
taking,
anyway.
yeah, no, you're right. And then taking into context that I've rated this movie the exact same rating I gave the first Indiana Jones, I will say that at the very least, The Mummy is either greater than or equal to,
Yeah.
the best Indiana Jones movie, which I think is what I believe the first one is.
I think it's aged a lot better. It's hard to deny that. I mean, the quality of this movie, there's obviously some outdated CGI, but not all the CGI is outdated. Some of it looks even better than stuff that comes out
Yeah,
nowadays. I
some of
mean,
it looks bad, but some of it looks pretty good for sure, 100%.
yeah. And some of it looks incredible, and a lot of that is down to lighting.
Hmm.
Like, they keep like in those early Imhotep scenes when he first wakes up, he's in the dark.
Hmm.
He's dimly lit, so it works really well. And then they combine. That's the big thing too. They combine with like the soldier mummies or the priest mummies. They combine live action with guys in
Yeah,
costumes. And they only used visual effects when they need to, like when the mummies are crawling on the wall or something.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I always loved the Americans too, like just they're great like cowboy characters
I
and
love.
tough guys.
There's a scene in this movie that I love, and it cracks me up every time. Cracks me up last night watching this movie again, which
Yeah.
is um when when they first find like the book or something, and
Mhm.
Benny's like he wants none of it. He's
Yeah.
like, this is a cursed object, this and that, this and that. And he like walks back and then he like runs away. And then the one guy goes like, what is it that he says? He says, stupid, superstitious bastard.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, the again, this movie does great with just like these very kind of like straight man delivery of jokes that follow like very kind of Looney Tunes crazy like action. Um, so I really love that because obviously that guy when he like went all crazy reacting to the book, it was perfect to just cut back to that one guy and to have him just say with the most monotone like whatever the hell boys just stupid superstitious bastard.
Oh, it's a
It
great line.
gets me every time.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Well, I think those characters too, they're great, the Americans, because they're tough guys.
Yeah.
So then when they're shitting their pants
Yes.
from the mummy, it makes the mummy look scarier.
Hmm.
Like I think it was the YouTube channel Savage Books, if I'm not mistaken, who brought up a great point that I have actually used this in my writing ever since I watched this video like 5 years ago. But he has a video where he talks about John Wick,
Yeah.
and he talks about what makes John Wick, the character, scary in that first movie, because they write John Wick like a villain, even though he's the protagonist. and they make him scary. And the way they do it is they introduce these Russian mob guys who are
They
scary,
build them up.
and
Yeah.
then they have them be scared of John Wick.
Yes.
So it works, and I've actually stolen that technique in some of my writing. Like the book that I just wrote, the main character is like a just a tough badass motherfucker. Like he's like Clint Eastwood from Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Hmm.
And then when he meets the villain for the first time, he's shit in his drawers, you know. And I think that works in this movie. It works really well because um, it just makes Imhotep scarier because
Yeah.
immediately you're like, oh, these tough guys are not tough anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of Benny, we got to talk about Benny, dude.
What do you
Such a great, such a great like archetype, you know,
he
that
go ahead.
just the cowardly character that you're just ready to see get what's coming to him. You're like, yes,
That's the
please get
scene,
him. Like,
like the last scene of this movie where he almost makes it out, and then Brendan Fraser goes like, "See ya, Benny," or, or whatever he says, like after Benny, like
yeah,
it's not where we get out, and then he has to crawl, like crawl just back into the tomb, right, and then just be trapped in there. That is the scene that when I was a kid, like stuck with me. Because I was
oh
like, oh my
yeah,
god, that's a nightmare scenario. Because like even if the bugs didn't come out, he was gonna die anyway. Like he was
yeah.
trapped in
I
there.
always watch that scene and I'm like grateful that the bugs ate
Exactly,
him. I
dude.
was
Because
like,
it's
that's
like
good. Actually, you would have starved to death in
otherwise it would
there.
have just been there going crazy for like weeks of just like when I'm just like waiting for himself to die, unless he like did it
Yeah,
himself. But yeah, funnily enough, and I don't know if the movie even knows that it's just like those like man-eating bugs coming out are just like a mercy to this guy.
they really
It
were.
really weird, especially because we see those things like eat people in this movie in like a matter of like seconds. So it's like at least
Yeah.
this is like a nice like way out for this guy. But he's a very fascinating character. Again, like we get introduced to him like in the second scene of this movie, and from the very beginning we know this guy's just a coward. He's in it for himself, and his main trigger is just his survival instinct. Like this guy is here to survive. You can even imagine how there was a line of Bennies through history, like his descendants, and how they all were just like these like sneaky like little weasels, and they all survived, and then he was like the last one in that dynasty of weasels. Because it's just this weaselly little guy, always picking the side that he thinks is the winning side, where he's gonna come out on top and he's gonna be just fine. And ultimately that's his downfall. Which I love the scene where Imhotep is just kind of approaching him to end him, and
Oh yeah,
he's just
it's
like
great.
like just like going through all these different religions, just like being like, which one's gonna which one's gonna work?
Yeah, it's
Love that
great.
scene, fantastic scene.
I
Um,
think that's the scene that seems to be the scene that everybody like thinks of. Like
yes,
whenever people talk about this movie, I think that's the first scene they all think
it's a
of. They're
great
like,
scene.
"Oh, that scene where Benny's like trying all the different religions."
Yeah,
Like,
it's a
and it
great
does.
scene.
Judaism saves him
It
because
does save
then
him.
Imhotep's like, "Oh shit, the
That,
Moses
yeah,
story. All
that's the
right, I
one.
could
That's me.
use you."
That's me. Oh yeah, that's hilarious. Oh, which by the way, just to bring this back to something we mentioned earlier, which movie took the Oscar off of this one was The Matrix for sound design.
Well, yeah, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, yeah. Like when I
Matrix has
saw that,
some
I
good
was like, yeah, you
sound
can't
design.
argue with that. It was the fucking Matrix. It won like
Nah,
best
you
sound
can't.
design and best sound effects and everything. Tough luck for the movie. It was a tough year, 1999. But yeah, Benny's character
It
is
was a big
great.
year. Yeah, yeah. You know what's interesting about Benny is he's a horrible character, like a horrible person
Hmm.
because of how he sells people up the river. But you can still, he's humanized. Like you can kind of relate to him a little bit,
Yeah.
you know. And anyone who says they can't are just
No,
lying.
you do
You know,
100%.
obviously, yes, I would never like sell my friends up the river the way he does or anything like that. But you understand the way when he's cowering and
Yeah,
everything. You kind of get. I get
the
it.
guy
I'm
wants to
like, yeah,
survive.
fuck, I'd be running too, man.
Yeah,
Holy shit.
yeah. Like
You know, and
he
anyone who says no is just, they're not being
right,
honest.
because also you have to remember that at the end of the day, it's like it got him to the very end of the movie. Like he really like he really like stuck in there. Like he
Hmm.
managed a way to survive right until the end, until it was just he
Hmm.
ran out of luck. He was shit out of luck. Like he used up all of the luck that he had, and then it was done.
Yeah, because his problem was he wanted his cake and to have his cake and eat it
Mhm.
too. Because he, even though he's a coward, he kept putting himself in new situations. He
Yes.
kept having new
Yeah,
cons.
yeah.
He's a con
The
artist,
guy
so he's like, I can't. I got to still try to get rich, but
yeah.
I'm just gonna at this first sight of trouble, I'm out of
He's
there.
like,
You
Adam
know?
Sandler in Not Cut Gems. It's like, it's just he's sick. This is the way he's like, what is it?
Yeah.
What is it when Adam Sandler says that movie? This is how I win.
Oh yeah, this is me. This is how I
This is
win.
how I win. Holy shit, dude.
You
Uh,
know who I feel really bad
Amazing
for in
movie.
this movie though, dude, is the glasses guy.
Yeah, you have
Holy
to feel bad for
shit,
that guy.
man.
Like, what did the guy even do? Like the other guys just kind of go out. I mean, that one guy gets like sucked the life out of him, but at least it happens like quick. But with that one guy, he loses his eyes to Imhotep, and then they double back on him, and he's like, and then Benny's like, Imhotep's here, and he's here to collect. It's nice that you
Yeah.
gave him the eyes, but now he wants everything else. And it's like, what did this
Yeah.
poor guy even do? Like, we don't even know what great sin that guy committed that happened to him.
Yeah, man. I always just felt so bad for him, man. Like
Yeah.
when I still remember this is a weirdly specific memory, but I remember at 9 years old watching this movie like with my parents because my dad had seen it. I think when it first came out,
Hmm.
and my parents and I were just watching it one night, like during the summer, and the second he falls and his glasses hit the ground
Yeah,
and
it's
Benny's running
terrible.
toward him,
Yeah.
my mom just goes, "Crunch."
Yeah, it's
And then
terrible.
right after they crunch,
Yeah.
Um, a weirdly specific memory, but I just remember that fondly. But, yeah, and then that scene is so fucking scary, like, when he's just walking blindly through
Hmm.
that corridor, and you see Imhotep moving around in the background, like the
Yeah.
shadow, which again, that subtlety is just great. They don't do that in a lot of movies, a lot of horror movies, like,
Hmm.
subtlety is huge, and
Yes.
when that guy is pacing through the hallway and you just see barely in the background, you just see Imhotep's shadow kinda walking across the intersection of the hallways. Man,
But
so good,
but
dude.
again, it's like it's just so interesting with this movie because this movie has those memorable scenes, like the
Yeah.
Benny scene and that scene, because that scene is so memorable. Like every time it happens, I'm like, oh, here it comes.
Mhm.
And that ending scene with Benny when he gets strapped, like this movie has a really um a really good way of creating really memorable scenes just because of kind of like the oh, I wouldn't want to be in that situation element of those scenes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what would I do in that situation? But I don't want to be in that situation. Like it's such a great like it does so great at just making those like little moments for the audience of putting them in the character's shoes and then just being horrified and being like, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Oh, absolutely, dude. It's kind of interesting though, that glasses scene, it's kind of a catch-22. They kinda wrote themselves into a corner with that because despite that guy being the most it made the most sense that he'd be the first victim because he has the weakness of, you know,
Eyesight.
becoming blind.
Yeah.
Imhotep stealing his why would his
Yeah,
eyes
exactly.
be
Be
not
the
the
good
greatest
ones.
eyes to steal. I don't know if Imhotep's magic helped him,
I guess that's the
heal the eyes
assumption.
completely.
Yeah.
You gotta assume, yeah, I mean, you gotta assume that if Imhotep can heal his entire body, he could probably make those eyes,
Yeah. It's like
adjust the focus.
he's like, I just need them to be
Yeah.
healthy eyes. I don't need them to see all that well. I can manipulate them.
Yeah,
But
you gotta
yeah,
assume.
yeah, it really is a question.
It
It's like that
works.
guy's eyes, like the guy with the worst vision out of everybody here. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, on that note, I always loved how you don't actually see the mummy taking people's flesh. Um, and that's good because when I was a kid, that made it way scarier because I would just picture
Hmm.
something horrible. Like I would just picture making you imagine it is
Hmm.
way worse because then in The Mummy Returns, you actually have you seen The Mummy
No, this
Returns?
is the only movie I've seen.
So in The Mummy Returns, it's Imhotep again, but they
See
add
what's up
like
again?
the rocks.
Holy
Yeah, it
shit!
is. But the Rock's character is like an added villain
Okay.
in the Scorpion King. So there's a lot of like new elements in the Mummy Returns. The Mummy Returns is a flawed movie, but it's a great sequel because it's not a retread.
Mhm.
It's very much more of like a an epic quest. It's like a quest fantasy movie almost. They're all trying to get to like this one place. They're trying to beat Imhotep to basically the Scorpion King's pyramid. Um, and you
Interestingly
actually
enough,
see
the length
Imhotep.
is just about the same, 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Really? Wow, and that again, that's crazy to me because and maybe that might be I haven't seen The Mummy Returns in a while, but maybe that's a flaw of that movie, like the pacing, because that seems like a short time for I'm just remembering all of the different elements.
Mhm.
Because in that movie, you have Imhotep, but then you also have the Scorpion King, and then you have, like you have, his lover from ancient Egypt, she's, like, reincarnated in the second one, so she's in that. You have these like pygmy mummies. You have uh, an army of jackal soldiers. Like all of these elements that they put in that movie, and that seems like a lot to pack
Yeah,
into
they keep it in 2
two
hours, and
hours and
even the
10 minutes.
last one, even the Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, is just an hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah, that one stunk, dude.
It has a
I only
13% on
I
Rotten Tomatoes.
It's horrible. That was a big disappointment because I saw that in theaters as a kid. I was so
I
excited, and
bet you were
it
excited,
sucked.
dude.
It was horrible. That's the only time I've never rewatched it.
Yeah, damn. That's like me with the
But
Amazing Spider-Man 2. I watched the Amazing Spider-Man 2 in theaters. One
yeah.
time in the theaters, never watched it again.
Oh, same here, dude. I ain't watching that again. Uh, but in The Mummy Returns, you actually see Imhotep take someone's flesh, basically. You see how he does it.
Mm.
He basically grabs a guy and, like, roars at him, and pieces of the guy's skin just fly off of him and onto
That's kind of
Imhotep,
lame. Like
essentially.
this, that sounds kind of lame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is because not only I mean, the effect was kinda cool, but there's shitty CGI, and it just kinda ruins it 'cause it's way scarier in the first one when you just hear it.
Mhm.
You hear it, and you hear the, like, gooey sounds, and you just picture something way worse,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and speaking of Imhotep, and I'm almost done with my positives, and then we can get into our negatives and nitpicks and wrap this up, but,
Mm.
unless you got more positives, but, yeah, Imhotep's a great villain. Despite his sympathetic backstory, like he's a complete narcissistic monster, and it works. Like it's great, and there's just enough character and personality there, and the language barrier works so well. The fact that he doesn't speak English, because
Mhm.
I've seen clips from the Tom Cruise mummy, and she speaks perfect English, and the problem, the reason him not speaking English and just sticking with ancient Egyptian in the 1999 version in this movie, it works so well because it makes him seem disconnected
Yeah.
from and thus alien to the protagonists.
Yes.
It just makes it just adds to the foreign alien element
Benny
where he's not
translator.
able to speak English to the characters.
Yeah.
It just it works.
Yeah.
Like it just
I
um
agree.
but yeah, he's a great character because they don't try to make him too sympathetic. They give him a backstory, you understand where he's coming from, but he's evil.
Mhm.
He's totally evil. But you understand why. I mean, because at this point, I mean, he got buried
He
alive,
did get
and
buried
he's
alive.
been. One thing though, because here's where some of my nitpicks with this movie come in. Some
Okay.
of the language around some of the magical rules and things is a bit muddled because what did they actually do to him with that curse? Like,
I
does
don't
he go
know.
to hell? Does he stay awake in his sarcophagus? Like, what? I don't get what.
I don't get it. I guess it's just a kind of an implication. And funnily enough, that's not even like a nitpick that I have with this movie. But I guess it is just kind of an implication, like, oh, he's gonna suffer forever, and it's like, okay, but it's like, okay, all
Yeah,
right,
because yeah, and I'm fine with leaving it up to interpretation, but
yeah,
the movie almost seems to give us a few interpretations.
mhm,
Like because when I was a kid, when you're a kid, and especially your first time watching it, like, it's like you kind of miss certain things. I always just assumed he was in hell. Like that
Right.
was my assumption that
Yeah.
they sent him to hell
Yeah.
basically. And then when they resurrect him, he's out of hell and now he's able to, he has all these powers. But then there's also seems to be some implication that he's just conscious in his
Yeah.
sarcophagus, but when they open the sarcophagus, he still needs to be brought back to life. So it's a little
It
muddled,
is because
I
it's
gotta
like because
say.
that's the weird thing, and that's also like something that I thought about too. Because it's just like you have scenes like when his face comes up in the sand, and he seems to have some kind of interaction with the people in the physical realm,
Right.
but then like you said, then they open his sarcophagus and he's just a dead mummy, and it's just like what's going on, and then she has to read that from the book to revive him. So it's like you said, it's kind of muddled. Like they're playing very loosey goosey, and it's not clear like what exactly is going on with that stuff.
Yeah. I think the best interpretation is probably just he's in the underworld, but maybe his spirit has some sway over the physical
Physical
world,
world.
like if someone's intruding on his
And
property,
he's like,
but
hey, get out of there!
yeah.
Don't swing baseballs at my property. My body's buried
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah. A few real quick positives that I'm just gonna rapid fire. A great example of good directing is the scene where they first come back from Hamunaptra. Rick is packing, and then Evelyn's unpacking as he
Yes.
packs,
Yeah, that's a great
and they're
scene.
arguing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like you're making dialogue scenes interesting, right?
Mhm.
As opposed to like the Star Wars prequels where people are just sitting on couches
Yeah,
talking.
just talking.
Um,
You give
whereas
the
like
actors something to do, and it's like it's really good blocking, And there's some
yeah,
physical comedy too from Brendan Fraser, because she closes the thing on his fingers, so that
yeah,
there's that's a really great point, and that's something that again, like you, I really like that about this movie. This movie has a lot of commitment to
mhm,
execution, to physical humor, and just to letting the actors kind of play out a scene. Like when all those like bookshelves fall, that all happens in one take. The camera is just kind of panning, and you just see all of them falling, and then it ends on Rachel Weisz and her reaction. And you always know that there's a close up for the safe, because then they cut to that close of her going like "oops" or whatever it is that she says. But until
yeah,
then, you get it all in a whole wide. That was the thing with that's just a trick right out of Spielberg's book. Like that's such a Spielberg trick, because he and famously in Indiana Jones, to bring up Indiana Jones in this movie, there's like a scene I think where Indy's like packing his suitcase, and it's all happening in one take. I think he has a conversation with somebody, and then he throws something, and I think it's supposed to land like right in his suitcase or something like that. And they captured all of that in one take. You kind of get this whole kind of movement with the camera, and then it ends in this kind of moment where it just has to go just right. And this movie has a
yeah,
lot of little moments like that. But the cheat, and funnily enough, I listened to Spielberg and he talked about it. So the cheat code to this is that you always also capture it. In case it
yeah,
fails, you capture it in a close. So maybe you can just cut to the close if the ending that you wanted, in the wide or in the long take fails. And this movie executes that a little bit, where like in that Rachel Weisz scene, it ends with her, and just as she's about to speak, they cut to a close of her. So that something went wrong, but they had the close. They were, but this movie does a little bit of that. So the movie takes a lot of Spielberg cues. There's a lot of Spielberg isms in this movie. Obviously, one of the most influential filmmakers of all time, especially for a movie like this. Like an
oh
Indiana
for sure.
Jones kind of movie. But yeah, again, big props. I think you're absolutely right. That's a huge positive this movie has going on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then I'll just say like the sand wall scene, that scene's incredible.
Mhm.
That scene holds up too, I think visual effects wise.
Yeah.
Like with the face and the sand, that yeah, just a epic, awesome action sequence. And then I love the use of shadows for violent scenes because they had to do
Yeah,
that
yeah,
because
that's
the movie
right.
was
When
PG
that guy gets
13.
squeezed, you see it in the shadow, like when he's like guarding. Rachel Weisz's room as she's sleeping, and the sand comes in through the window, and you just see the shadow of what happens to him. Yeah,
Yeah.
great use of shadow
Yeah,
for
that
sure.
shit's great, yeah,
Mm.
and then, when I always thought the scene they use the shadows in that scene where the mummy priests are all marching toward the altar,
Yeah,
and you see their shadows.
yeah,
Dude, that shit
that
creeped
is
me out
creepy.
as a kid,
Yeah,
man, like, it just cuts to the wall, and you just see their shadows, like, you know, ju like, jittery walking down, like, "Ah," like, to and then
yeah,
they kinda all kneel and start bowing, like, that shit that that shit creeped me out as a kid,
yeah,
man. I was like, "Ooh," I remember thinking about that just that shot sometimes and being like, "That's creepy, dude."
yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I love the throwback to the old movie mummies with Imhotep's priests. Like, they get, you know, they this movie gets to have its cake and eat it too because they didn't wanna make, Imhotep a toilet paper man, but they got to do that with the priest
Yes,
mummies,
they did.
they had some fun and they there was a nod and a wink to the, Lon Chaney Jr. Walking around, with
Mhm,
the toilet paper
mhm.
wrapped around him. Um, and then a great tribute to Ray Harryhausen with the, warrior mummies when Rick's sword fighting,
That's right.
with
That's right.
them,
I thought
with
about that
the,
too.
sword fighting the
Yeah.
skeletons in, Jason and the Argonauts. And then, finally, the lady mummy, dude. Uh, she scared the shit out of me as a kid. She's terrifying.
Mhm.
When she wakes up and is screaming at the camera and just those eye sockets and those teeth, she scared me, dude.
Yeah,
I think her mummy was like the scariest part of the movie when I was a kid,
yeah,
honestly. I just bone chilling that scream that she lets out when he brings her back to life.
yeah. That
Oh
trail.
god. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, finally, Imhotep being stripped of his powers. That's a really satisfying death.
It is.
Just to see this guy for 1 second to be, like, mortal again,
Yeah.
it's very
It's
satisfying.
funny to me that he's back in the second movie because I'm just like, but it's like, oh, but the horses, they took away his powers and he stabbed him and he died. It's like, is he really back again for the sequel? But yeah,
Like, what happens in the sequel, like, just the setup is the he comes back because the woman it's kinda convoluted, though, because it's like he brought, her back to life as a mummy in the
hmm
first movie, but then in the second movie, she's, like, reincarnated
hmm
as, like, just a regular
oh
person.
really?
The, yeah, his lover from ancient Egypt.
Yeah,
Um, and
maybe he
she's
had waited.
reincarnated, and so she leads, like, a cult. She's, like, with a cult that worships him, that, like,
Yeah,
serves him,
and they
and
bring
they
his
dig
ass
him
back to
up.
life. Okay,
Yeah, and they bring him back.
okay.
And their whole objective is to, like, get to the Scorpion King's temple. Because if you defeat the Scorpion King in battle, then you get command of the army of Anubis, and then you can take over the world, so
That movie
it's
does sound.
kind of a cool plot.
It's kind of cool, but it's also really convoluted. Like it's really so convoluted. So you have to get
Yeah.
reincarnation in there, and defeating the score. Yeah, whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, well, because the way they explain it in the second movie is, like, she's reincarnated, but there's still a piece of her soul. Because the ancient and it kinda works, because the ancient Egyptians believed that the soul was, like, kind of fragmented, so there was your body, but then there was your spirit, and then
Mhm.
also your soul, so she's only, like, reincarnated in the flesh and, like, in mind, but her soul still needs to be brought back by Imhotep. It's a little convoluted,
Yeah.
but, you know.
All
'Cause I
right.
remember as a kid watching it and just being like, "But she was a mummy in the first movie, what the fuck?"
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
What are your gripes with this movie?
What my gripes?
Yeah.
Um, so first, I guess I'll start with, like, some mixed or nitpicks. The way like, on the boat, when the way Jonathan gets the key back seems a little contrived because that flaming guy grabs it,
hmm
and then he falls off the boat, and then you just see Jonathan has
Has
it
it?
again. So
Yeah.
they needed a shot where you see it fall.
Yes.
Nitpicky, but I had to rewind the scene because I was like, "Wait, did I miss
Yeah. No, I
something?"
agree
But
with you. When I watched this movie for the second and now third time, that was also a thing. I was like, what? How did that happen? But yeah.
yeah. Some of the dialogue is a bit on the nose, like, um Rachel Weisz, like, "What do you suppose killed him?" You know, when they're talking about the guy who got his brain eaten by the bug.
Mhm.
She asks that, like, hours later when they're camping, and
Yeah.
it's like, wouldn't she have asked that right
Right then.
after the
Yeah.
um, and then there's another scene where she's like, "No, I don't believe in curses. If I can see it and I can touch it, then it's real." And it's just like, I got it. You don't believe in curses. Like, you didn't need that extra line, like, whatever. Um, why would the warrior mummies follow Imhotep by default? I get that his priests followed him, but they when Jonathan reads that incantation and then the warrior mummies come out, the guys with the Wizard of Oz hats, like, why did they follow Imhotep? They're the descendants of the Magi, like
Yeah.
the Pharaoh's bodyguards, or not the descendants. They were the mummified Pharaoh's bodyguards. I thought.
Yeah.
Um, so a little weird. Like, why? I get for the plot, you have to have warrior mummies that serve Imhotep, so it makes the scene more interesting. But uh, yeah, I just didn't get that.
Imhotep,
And then
Imhotep.
yeah, and then Imhotep's jaw dropping in his human form was too cartoonish. Like when
Yeah.
he's about to kill Brendan Fraser, that shot looks awful, man.
Yeah, it
Like
does. It does look awful.
that was awful. But real negatives. So it seems like the Magi could have tried harder to prevent Imhotep from being dug up. Like, why
Yeah.
wouldn't they move him once the city's been discovered? It's a plot hole that needed to either be addressed, or you could scrap the Magi and recast them as a rival band of treasure hunters. Because I
Yeah.
get it, you want some battle scenes, you want some opposition on their way to the city, but it just seemed like the Magi, like, once they were like, "Oh, some people are on their way to this city," why wouldn't you just move the sarcophagus somewhere else?
Yeah. I
Like,
don't
I
know.
don't know.
I don't know.
Wouldn't you move that thing? It's problem solved.
Yeah, they were very like passive. They're just like, this is kind of what it is, and we're here,
Right.
and I guess we have to deal with the situation. There's like, is this really out of your guys' hands? Like, it seems like as long as you don't read that book, things are fine. You know, they could
Yeah.
even
Yeah,
like
they could have
fucking
even just
burn this
taken the
guy.
book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, they didn't even have to take the sarcophagus, they just take the book,
yeah. It's like,
boom.
do
But
something.
I would take both if I
The
were them.
sarcophagus and the book. It's like they burn one of them. Like, just get rid of this shit. Just throw him like in the bottom of the ocean. Like, there's options
Yeah.
to make it so that this guy is not like available and accessible. Like, come on, guys. But yeah,
Yeah. Or don't put a curse on him that's going to make him come back with, like, the powers of hell. I mean, I get
yeah,
that you want this guy to go to hell for what he did, but, I mean, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's a problem, you know? I
yeah.
mean,
It's bro.
they should have recast them as just, like, some rival band of treasure hunters, and then the Ardith Bay, the leader character, could have been more of like a, kinda joined in to help them defeat the mummy,
It's funny
just like he did in the
because
movie.
this just makes me think of like there's a gag in One Punch Man because I reread not I reread but I caught up to the manga again. And there's a
Yeah.
gag in which he randomly stumbles upon two like different factions. One of them wants to revive this like monster of legend that if it's revived, it's gonna destroy the world. And the other one is a faction that is just trying to prevent that. And they've been at it for
Uh-huh.
like centuries, just like back and forth, just preventing these guys from doing it. And Saitama,
Mm.
the main character of One Punch Man, who punches one things once and destroys them,
Yeah.
he's like, why don't we just do it? He's like, let's just revive the guy so we can deal with him. He's like, let's just
Because he
go.
wants to fight,
Yeah, he said, let's
right?
just go and revive him. And so he like just goes. He like does the whole thing because you have to gather like 9 pieces of him or something, and he just like revives the guy and immediately kills him. And he's just like, there it is, it's done. We don't have to deal with this anymore. But yeah,
Dude, One Punch Man's wild. Yeah,
it's
that's awesome.
hilarious.
That's awesome. And then two more. The acid scene feels really random. It kind of messes up the pace. So when the diggers open up the
And
wall
we
and the
just
acid comes out and burns
yeah,
them, it hogs some of the tension prior to the scarab scene where just one scarab goes into that guy's brain or whatever,
hmm
and then the sarcophagus discovery. It just uh, it messed the pace up a little bit, I think.
yeah.
I remember just being like, "This is too much crammed into one 10-minute block here," but, um and then my last thing, this is probably my biggest gripe with the movie. why didn't they make Evelyn resemble Imhotep's lover?
Yeah, I thought about that.
Because
Funnily enough, this was the first time I thought about it. Like, I thought about it this time. I didn't think about it the first time, but then this time I was like, because that's the thing. Because even like when you watch something like Nosferatu and stuff like that, there's like a huge implication that the character looks just like what he remembered, like his lover looking like.
exactly.
But with this movie, it's like, she looks nothing at all
Yeah.
like this woman. So I have no idea, but that is a
Yeah.
that is a big like that is a big point.
I don't get it because like in the original Mummy, it's just the same actress who plays both.
Hmm.
And then again, like
They
in
should have
Bram
done that.
Stoker's
They should
Dracula,
have done
it's
that for this.
Winona. Yeah, it's Winona Ryder. Like, but it's like they wanted Patricia Vasquez to play uh Ankh Sun Namun or whatever her name is,
Yeah,
and like she's perfect for the role, but then they didn't want her to be
Rachel Weisz,
the
right?
Evelyn character,
Yeah,
but
which
then cast Rachel Weisz as because they do in the second movie they retcon it to where Rachel Weisz was an ancient Egyptian, like, and
huh?
they make her look more like an ancient Egyptian princess,
Okay,
like in flashback
but that is
scenes.
such a
So it's
retcon.
like you could have done that
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
like so.
yeah.
Why
It's
not
silly.
just have Rachel Weisz
Play the
have played
character.
in the original scene?
Yeah,
Which, but I don't know. Well, because that's an issue because she's like a murderer. She murders the pharaoh, so that would have made her unlikable.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't know.
That would mess it up.
I don't know. I think it
That
doesn't
would
mess
mess
it
it up
up
a
because
little
at
bit.
at the end of the day, it's like because you're not implying that it's the resurrection of the character. Just basically saying like she just kind of looks like her. It's like, yeah, she kind of looks like her. Because it doesn't mess up anything
Right.
in like Nosferatu or anything. Like you still believe that the character as a new character has agency and it's detached from whatever obsession the villain has. So I think they could have worked around that. I think it would have just been a matter of execution.
Yeah. And plus, side note, I don't know if everyone would agree with this, but she was kind of like justified in killing the pharaoh. Like when that scene where they kill him, I'm like, good,
Yeah.
because she's
Yes.
like his concubine, like his
Yeah.
slave,
Yeah, you just want
basically.
to be
It's
with
just
him.
like, yeah,
Yeah, it's good. Yeah,
good,
that's the thing. That's the thing. You would have as a tragic backstory.
right?
But even then, even if they didn't cast Rachel Weisz as her, they could have just cast somebody that looked just like her sister or something. Like just somebody that looks like her, that resembles her. It doesn't even have to be her.
Mhm.
But whatever.
Yeah, it's tough because they were both perfect casting choices.
Yeah, they're good.
So it's tough. They wanted to again have their cake
You
and eat it
needed
too, I
to. Yeah, you
guess.
can only do that so much before you get diarrhea.
Yeah, right. Nice.
Noise. Uh,
What's you got anything else on the
um,
mummy?
for me, my biggest gripe watching this movie, especially like when I watched it again 6 months ago. I liked Brendan Fraser. I liked his dynamic with Evelyn and Rachel Weisz. I like the brother sidekick character. I like Benny. I like the greedy guy that comes with them, and then he dies because of he thinks those like little like scarabs or whatever that he
Scarabs.
removes are like valuable, but it's like no, this is just insects that are that's gonna eat you alive. Like I like a lot of the stuff. I like a lot of the gags. I think the movie is really well paced. But I don't like when Emotep has like the whole city as an army and it's like the whole Emotep thing. Like I don't like that scene. Like that sequence, I don't like it. When he like surrounds them and then they fool the crowd and they get into the car and they drive away, and that one guy basically like, sacrifices himself, the last American guy. And then he like surrounds them and they basically do a trade where it's like, oh, yeah, just take Evelyn and then like we'll fight you another day. And
Yeah,
they open the what do you call that?
manhole.
Yes. And then that one other guy again, it's like refusing to live. He's just like fighting them with like a sword. This whole city that's been transformed into an army. He's like sword fighting them, and Brendan Fraser, the Brave, is like, come, let's go, get in the hole, come
Yeah, they're not
on.
even close to the manhole. It's
Yeah.
not like he was holding them off.
So it's like
Like he
that
could
guy
have gone.
clearly had like a he had a death wish. It was like,
Well,
this is
it's
my
like
this is my moment.
it's Stephen Summers wanting to sorry, I was gonna say it's Stephen Summers wanting to get rid of characters, being like,
Yes.
"No, this guy's not along for the ride." It's like the Family Guy meme where they all put their hands like they're like, "Yes, adventure," and then,
Yeah.
like, the Seamus guy puts his hand in there, and Peter
No, not
goes,
you.
"No,
Not you.
not you, Seamus." Yeah, like it's like
Yes.
that.
But it's like you no, you're 100% right. It's like him trying to get rid of characters, but it's like they got a little bit lazy because it's like, if you're really gonna do that, then don't show a wide of how much like time they have, and
Mm,
don't have Brendan Fraser going like, Come on, come on, let's go,
mhm.
get in the
Yeah,
hole, you idiot!" Like, don't have those scenes if you really want me to believe that that guy really had to sacrifice himself.
yeah.
Whatever, I don't like those scenes. I actually don't like that whole sequence. I don't like them going around around the city. I don't
Interesting.
like any of that. And I also have a huge issue with how we cut from them going into that hole to them then being like ready to fly out, and being like, all right, let's get on the plane. We're gonna fly out, because then it feels like it rubs the movie off a little bit of the tension. Like, it's like we go from them being like, all right, have Evelyn, and now this guy's gonna sacrifice himself, to immediately the next scene being like, but now we're gonna go right for her, and then cut to Emotep and the other guy, they're just like flying like a weird sandstorm or whatever, and it's like, I don't like any of those scenes, and then they get rid of the old guy because he just like dies. Like,
That was them again being like, "We don't want this pilot
they
running around in the
crash.
tombs."
They crash, and Brendan Fraser's like, "Oh, he dead. He died in the crash," and then the sand swallows him. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
I don't like any of those scenes. Like, I feel like all those scenes like stand out like an infected like thumb. Like, I don't like any of them. And this is an issue that I had like when we first watched this movie 6 months ago. Like, we had an issue with that. Like, we were both like, me and my partner watched this movie, and we were both just like, oh, it's kind of silly, it doesn't make sense. So we didn't appreciate that watching it then. I didn't appreciate that watching it again. Because I just don't like how they go about doing that. I feel like they could have added a minute or two of this movie to just have a little bit of a window of like, we lost. Imhotep bested us. He got the best of us. We've been defeated. It feels like the movie never sits on
Mm,
that. There's never a moment where we get to going like, what's the next plan? What's the next step? Like, they had set up that guy to do the whole like flight and everything like earlier on when they were just first flying, like when they were first just trying to get away from the town and get out of there. I know they had done that, but it's like it felt like there was a missing piece there. Like, it just felt like it was too quick, too much. Like, they just kind of rushed through that, and then I just didn't like that. Just kind of demised with of those three characters back to back to back with no real like, oh, this is why he died. There was a reason behind this. Like, it was. There's no other way. There was ways. And that old guy, he just died just because. Like,
the museum or the library curator or whatever?
no, no, no. That guy obviously died just because. But I mean, like, the old guy when
Mm.
the plane crashed, it was like that
Oh, the
guy.
pilot.
That guy also just died just because. Like, Brendan survived, his friend survived, and then that guy. Oh no, that guy's dead. He's done. We don't need him anymore. He's obviously actually we don't need him so much. It's gonna get swallowed by the sand, and he's gone.
Yeah.
Whatever. Those are my
The
gripes with this
guys
movie.
hanging onto the wings survived, but the guy in the pilot seat didn't.
It's not. So yeah, whatever, man. Like, those are the issues that I have
What
with this
don't you
movie.
like
It's like a
what don't you
five
like
minute. It's like a
about
five
the
minute stretch of this
right,
movie that I just don't like, and that's that.
interesting.
Yeah.
What don't you like about the, Imhotep, the people with the boils and sores, the zombie horde that he brainwashed people? What
Well,
what don't you like about that?
what I don't like is basically what it leads to. Like, I actually kind
Oh,
of find
okay.
it comical that I find it comical the whole emote, like, Although I do like the scene where her brother kind of joins them just so he can fool them and kind of get out of it.
Yeah,
Like,
shit's hilarious.
that scene's hilarious. But I just don't like that it feels like they write themselves into this corner of like, this is also how we're going to dispose of these characters, and then they
Mhm.
just don't do it in a satisfying way. Like, that's my
Yeah.
issue with it.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never had an issue with cutting between the them jumping into the manhole and then them going to the pilot guy, but it's tough to watch for me to watch a movie like this that I mean, as a kid, I probably watched this movie like I mean 5, 6 times in the span of a couple years.
Yeah,
Like this was like my favorite movie
yeah,
for a few years as a kid.
yeah,
Like from when I was 9 to the age of 11, I mean, this was like yeah, I would watch this movie multiple times a year.
yeah.
And it's hard to when a movie just is so burnt in your into your brain that way, it's just so hard to then try to figure
I
out
get
as
that.
an adult
Yeah, because then the movie
what
becomes like
what like what's not working
yeah,
because it's like I the memory is just not it hasn't faded at all.
yeah,
So
yeah, because it becomes like math at that point. It's like 2 plus 2 equals
mhm,
4. There's and I
mhm,
get that. I get that.
yeah.
Um, so I'm not faulting you for that or anything like that. But that, I mean, to me, that's kind of my experience with it. Like, I don't like that very much, and also that this movie, or rather the director, sometimes I feel like he's guilty of not being Steven Spielberg, for a lack of a better kind of word to use there. Because then the issue for him, and apologies for the dogs barking in the background for anybody that can hear this if this catches the recording, but the issue that I have with the director is that when Steven Spielberg does this like wowners, like this one takes that he does, um, they work in such a way where they are wholly motivated by some kind of like action or exciting moment. Oftentimes they are, and I feel like this director kind of makes the mistake of confusing moving camera for entertainment, where it's like, oh, if the camera is moving, the things are interesting, because there's scenes where he moves the camera just to move the camera, which is what they call like unmotivated camera movement. And in some movies it works, in some movies it doesn't. In this movie, for the most part, his approach at this film works, but there are a lot
Mm.
of scenes where he just kind of starts with the camera like gliding somewhere, and there's no excuse for that. It's just kind of like the camera's just moving just
Mm,
because of the fuck the camera's moving. Um, which to me, whenever I see somebody do that, is just the equivalent of like a meathead approach to filmmaking. Like you just didn't think about this. You didn't think this through. Whenever anybody moves a camera just for the fuck of moving a camera, it's like, to me it's like the worst. Like, why are you moving that camera? Why is it moving?
mm,
Um,
gotcha.
like, and I know that again. I know that probably bothers nobody. And I know that this is just coming from me and my brain and just kind of like looking at kind of these directorial choices. But in my book, moving a camera and not really justifying it is a big sin, and I didn't like that he did that a handful of times. But
Interesting.
that's it.
Okay.
Those are my gripes with the
I'll
manga.
have to keep my eye out for that next time I watch this. Um yeah, I will say too, your gripe from cutting like straight from the manhole to them hopping on the plane. Um, I will say that definitely strikes me as somebody who just got a month ago or so a developmental edit back, like with lots of feedback.
Mhm.
It definitely seemed on my novel. It definitely seems like something a developmental editor would flag of, like, being like, "There needs to be something here in between these
Yeah,
scenes."
but
You know what I mean?
you know what
Like, it definitely seems like that would be, like, a developmental
the
editor,
funny thing is
an issue they would have.
the funny thing is about, I guess, the difference between like like writing or like filmmaking, right? And the opposite of world of what you're talking about. Because the funny thing is that I feel like this happened in this movie probably because a producer was like, cut that. Hey, that scene
Yeah.
that you have in between those two things, cut it out. Like it feels like one of
Yeah.
those things in this movie where it's like somebody asked them to cut it. Like I was like, I bet there exists something. I bet there is something that they wrote and shot and it's there, and somebody was like, cut that shit out of there. Like that was like my thought. I was like, somebody said, cut that shit out of the movie. Because
You're
it's like,
probably right.
but that's the funny thing. Because then in a world where making everything kind of float together and make sense and kind of filling up those gaps, which is a kind of this literary world, it would make sense to be like, hey, you're missing that. But in the
Yeah.
film, it would make sense to be like, hey, just cut that out. You don't even need that. Just cut it. Then some guy's gonna be
Yeah.
like, "Why wasn't it there? Why is the camera
Yeah,
moving on
yeah.
its own? What's happening? No!"
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and especially back then too, like blockbusters needed to be like a tight, 2 hours. Like they
yeah,
weren't, like nowadays they're like, yeah, the Avengers 2 hours and 50 minutes, but back then it probably was like, no, 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 no. This movie needs to be 2 hours and nothing more,
yeah,
you know. But what would you so you mentioned your rating, I think, but
yeah.
just for the final rating, what you got?
I think this is probably like a very like period after the rating kind of rating for me. I don't think this would either go up or down. Like probably like ever. Unless my brain chemistry just changes like drastically and I stop being like the anal buffoon that I've been for the past 20 something years of my life. There's a 7 out of 10 for me.
Anal buffoon. um, Gotcha. All right. This is a 10 for me.
Yeah.
I think The Mummy 1999, Stephen Sommers made one of the greatest adventure films ever made. Honestly, most people throwing a bit of shade here, but I think most people who would say the Indiana Jones movies are better than this are either wearing nostalgia goggles or they're conforming.
Yeah, well that's the interesting thing.
Because this movie rocks,
Well,
man.
dude, and that's the interesting thing. And for anybody, again, anybody curious about what our ratings and what these numbers mean, just go back. I'll clip this into its own video unless you do it first, but I'll definitely do this. Which is to make it into its own clip for the show, like our rating scales that we discussed, like Jake and I and Jack, we talked
Mhm.
about this at length. Because the 7 for me is saying this movie is really good. Like I really love a 7 out of 10 movie. Like it's a movie that I would rewatch it at a drop of a hat. I just don't love it, and I just don't think, from my perspective, I don't think it's like a perfect movie or anything like that. Which is what I would give it
Yeah.
if I would give it an 8. But to add to your point, the Indiana Jones movies, and I've seen 2 of them. There's 4, 5 actually. But it's only like I guess 3 worth watching. The first 3, I've seen the first 2. And I gave the second one a 5 out of 10, and I gave the first one a 7 out of 10, and I gave this movie a 7 out of 10. So that's why I said it earlier that at the very least, this movie to me is either greater than or equal to Indiana Jones. I would have to rewatch the first one again, but I really do hold this movie in very high regard because in this 2 hour long movie, I only have like gripes of this movie that amount to 10 minutes of filmmaking. I mean, like 5 minutes of filmmaking rather. So
Yeah.
that's like that's an hour and 55 minutes of me being very happy with this movie.
Yeah.
So there's that, and I actually agree with you, because from my perspective and how I feel about those 2 movies, Indiana Jones and so on, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I feel like the action scenes in this movie just pack more of a punch, man.
Yeah,
Like that initial scene, that battle scene at Hamunaptra, like you don't have scenes like that in Indiana Jones, I
yeah,
don't think. I
and
mean,
and this Brandon
just
Fraser is so
scenes that
likable.
feel just that they're gritty, man. They just have the scenes in this movie. A lot of the action scenes just have grit that I just feel like the Indiana Jones action scenes are a bit more whimsical. By the way, for those listening, I like the first 3 Indiana Jones movies. I'm not hating on those. I
Yeah,
just this movie being such an obvious comparison, I think it's better.
yeah,
And I wish this movie was as recognized as the Indiana Jones
yeah,
movies were, but
yeah, and I don't
are.
disagree.
But
And hopefully
they
this
just have
episode,
they have that Spielberg
yeah,
pedigree,
yeah, yeah, no, exactly, and that's the thing. And hopefully this episode maybe helps to spark a little bit of that conversation because I don't see that conversation happening at all. So maybe we can help that
Mhm.
get going. At least one person that says, "Hey, this," maybe that can snowball into something. But yeah, because I think what helps in those Indiana Jones movies, like you said, is the Lucas Spielberg effect of it all, and then what's his
Mhm.
name? What's the name of the main actor?
Harrison
Harrison
Ford.
Ford. For whatever, however much they might have tarnished their legacy in that one South Park episode, but but
Oh, fuck yeah.
those who know. But yeah, this is a great movie. Go watch it if you haven't
Yeah,
watched it, everybody.
yeah, for sure. Um, well, you had some trailers you wanted to talk about, sir.
Yeah, we had specifically we had a comment. And I'm mentioning this because I want to by saying this I also want to give everybody um the knowledge, you know. Anybody commenting, all of our listeners, like if you guys interact with us in the comments and you gave us like suggestions of movies that you want us to watch or suggestions of things that you guys want us to do or cover in the show, we'll do it. You know, like we might not do it right away. Like it might not be like, oh, the next week we'll do it, but we'll do it eventually, you know, because we want to engage with you guys. And obviously we want to grow this community and we want to make everybody like feel involved and feel like we're having like an action and reaction to what's happening. And so we had a comment from a longtime friend of us and long friend of the show, supporter of the show, Mr. Lang, who gets mentioned every now and then because he gives us so much support. But Lang asked of us to watch the trailers for the movie Weapons by the director of Barbarian. He also asked us to watch a trailer for I think what is it the Benny Safdie movie. I forget the name of the movie, even though I watched the trailer for it. But it's like the fighting movie, the
Oh yeah,
UFC
the
movie,
Smashing Machine.
Smashing Machine. The trailer for Eddington, the trailer for 28 Years Later. You know, we mentioned last week the trailer for Predator Badlands, and I also watched that. So I kept up with a handful of these trailers, and I watched them so we can talk about them. Um, if we and then maybe we have something interesting to say, but we'll see. What do you think? Like, do you have anything like maybe we can start with the Predator one because I know that one you mentioned last week.
Yeah, yeah, that was after your internet shit the bed, and
Yeah,
I went on by myself, turned into Bill Burr's
yeah, I really
podcast of me
did.
rambling into the yeah, but,
If you
yeah,
go to that part of the episode at the very end, I have a Bill Burr like
I
gif.
saw that. It's fun. Yeah, man, so, it goes great with the other, bald guy, Jason Statham,
Yeah, it really
too.
does. They blend
Um,
together.
yeah, but yeah, Predator Badlands, I saw the trailer again, the other night I saw, um, Bring Her Back in theaters, which I'll talk about, when we're doing recaps, but, um, yeah, like Predator Badlands, I didn't realize this when I was talking about it on the last episode, but it's actually from the same director as Prey, um, the really solid Predator movie that came out a few years ago. And what's funny about that is when that came out, it was a straight to Hulu thing, and then it just streamed crazy numbers. And I think 20th Century Fox was kind of kicking themselves in the ass
Yeah.
for not putting it in theaters because they were like, "Shit, like we missed out on a huge box office success." So I think they're kind of going for a redo with Predator Badlands
Mhm.
from the same director as Prey, be it, and I believe that's going into theaters.
It is going into theaters.
So I think
Yeah,
yeah, so they're
in
doing like
November.
well, yeah, it would have to be if I saw the trailer in theaters, I guess. But yeah, they would. I think they're trying to do kind of a redo on
Yeah.
that.
It's like let's see if
Um,
it pays off this time.
yeah, I think I will say the idea of having a predator being the main character is interesting. I honestly, when I saw that it was the director of Prey, I have more faith in it now. Before I was kind of thinking a coin toss, just because like I was like, well, Prey was good, so it is still possible that a good Predator movie could be released.
Yeah.
But I have more faith into it now, in it now, because it's the same director. Yeah, like the idea of having a predator be the main character, it kind of makes sense because where else do we go at this point? People being hunted by predators.
Yeah.
You know, that's the concept of the first movie. The second movie, they were like, okay, let's do it in in an urban environment. Okay, then predators, let's do on Predator's planet. And then it's like, what? And then Prey, it was like, let's do it in colonial America or whatever.
Mhm.
We're running out of options,
Yeah.
like we're running
So
out of
let's make
things
it.
to
Let's make
do.
him the main character. Let's just make him the main character. We'll have Elle Fanning in there too. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like, oh, let's do Predator on a spaceship. Oh wait, that's Alien. Can't do
Yes,
that.
it
So
is
so
Alien.
it's kind of it's cool that, Predator being the main character. Hey, let's see if they pull it off. Like you can't it's hard to, certain concepts you hear and you're like, "Oh, that sounds like shit." And then other concepts some people might hear a concept like that and immediately have low confidence in it, but you really can execute anything in film form. You
Yeah.
know, like I remember hearing a guy, I don't remember who it was, but back when like the DC extended universe was shitting the bed, and some guy was talking about that, some film critic or some comedian, I don't know who it was, and he was basically saying like, "Well, it's because DC characters are overpowered. How do you
Yeah, I
write for
remember that.
characters like that?"
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't buy that. They've done it before. They've written good Superman movies.
Yeah.
There have been great,
Yeah, that's not the
I'm
issue.
sure,
Yeah, 100%.
great There's a reason these characters have endured. Even
Yeah.
if you don't look at movies, fine, but look at the comic books. Like,
Yes.
the Green Lantern character would have had to have been compelling enough to have so many comic book runs,
Yes.
so you can't, overall point being like, you can't just, or you shouldn't just look at a concept and say, "Oh, that's never going to work." You don't know. They might execute this really well.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that one. I'll go see it.
Yeah, it was
I
interesting. Yeah.
The only Predator movie I have not seen was The Predator that came out in like 2017 or 18.
Mhm.
And it's because I just heard that it was so
Yeah,
bad.
it
I
was
was
really
like, I'm not
bad.
even going to bother with it. But other, I'll go and see like a Predator movie that if it's at least like getting decent reviews.
Yeah. Okay, on to the
What about
next
you?
one. We also watched, I guess, the trailer for 28 Years Later. Um,
Wait, did you have any opinions on Predator
no,
Badlands?
not really. Like, I feel like you covered like all the bases on that. I don't really have anything
Oh,
to
okay.
add. Like, it kind of looks fun and interesting. Seeing the Predator just like fighting all these like weird creatures, and I like Elle Fanning. I really like Elle Fanning, so I'm excited for that. Like just seeing her
Yeah.
and just kind of seeing the action of the movie seems to be promising. Other than that, I don't have much to add, especially because I've only seen the first Predator movie. But I hope
Alright.
it's good, you know. But yeah, 28 years later, the sequel to 28 Days Later, the original movie by Danny Boyle with Killian Murphy, which was shot on potatoes at the time,
Yeah,
because it was like
it was.
I think it was like one of the first movies shot on digital camera, like one of the first, not movies, but like wildly released movies to be like shot on digital. So it looks like it was shot on a potato. It looks like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah,
um,
I always wondered why it looked that way. It
it's just
does
a
look like an
gimmick.
episode of Curb, an early episode, yeah.
It was just a gimmick. It was just basically like, hey, let's do like there's these cameras that are not better than film cameras, but they're there. So let's just do
Mhm.
the movie with them. It was basically just a through and through just a gimmick. Because obviously the movie has a big budget, so it's not a budgetary thing; it's just a gimmick thing. And then the same thing is true of this movie. 28 years later, which the idea that I get from this is that basically a lot of humanity has concentrated in like an island, and we have these kind of characters that are going to go off the island and into the mainland, and that's kind of the main issue. There's a lot of kind of military action in the trailer, and maybe some zombies that may be a little curious. Maybe there's something. There seems to have been a new development with the zombies. Maybe we have some kind of sentient zombies. So I feel like that's kind of what the trailer is kind of pointing us in those directions. And then the main thing to take from this is that this is shot on a bunch of iPhones. So leave it to Danny Boyle. Leave it to
Nice.
Danny Boyle to go like, yeah, what's a gimmick that we can do for this? Since we did the first one with these potato cameras, and they did this one with just phone cameras. Although, again, not a budget thing. This movie looks very expensive. A lot of visual effects in this movie. This trailer is very expensive. A lot of like music and shit on this trailer that has to be licensed. So it's like, again, this is not like if you watch a movie like Tangerine, which was shot on an iPhone like in 2015, 2014, that was like a budgetary and artistic choice. For this is just a gimmick. Like, that's my perspective. This is just like,
Mm.
the iPhone is basically what would be the equivalent of what we shot of like fucking Sony DSLR in 2000. Like, we're gonna do this now with a Sony, like with an Apple iPhone, and this is the new this is the marketing gimmick that we're gonna have. So outside of those points, I don't have much to add. I love Danny Boyle. I like watching his movies. Gimmicky, whatever, but we'll see what it has to offer. Like, what do you think? Do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I was pretty wowed by the trailer. Now that you say that, it's funny because I'm now remembering. I'm seeing the trailer in my mind's eye, and I'm like, "Fuck!" I do see how that looked like an iPhone because
Yeah,
it's like those very fluid, like soap opera y looking movements
yeah,
and shots, like no motion blur. It just looks very
yeah,
like I remember when people were getting those like huge plasma TVs, and it
mhm,
was like I remember looking at movies, like, you just walk through, like, a Best Buy and you see them on the wall, and I remember as a kid being like, "Why do these all look like soap operas?" It's
mhm,
like there is, like, a film look that I like retained in movies, and,
yeah,
sometimes I am, like even I do find myself just gravitating toward wanting to watch pre-2000 movies, like,
yeah.
pre-millennial movies, um, partially because of that, I think, but be that as it may, yeah, the trailer wowed me, dude.
It's a good
Just the
trailer.
trailer, that's how you make a trailer,
Mhm.
dude. I mean, it didn't give away too much,
Yeah, it really didn't. It
but
just
yeah,
kind of gave you
the
the
use of
premise. Yeah,
exactly, and the use of music, right? It's like the trailer gave us the log line
yes,
essentially,
yeah, and
and
that's
it
really
was
cool.
like yeah, yeah, the use of the music, like you alluded to, I can't remember it, but the music was really freaking intense,
Yeah, it
just
was
that
very
loop.
effective. Effective.
Yeah, that trailer, I feel like that was one of the best. Just if we're looking at trailers as an art form, which trailers are a lost art form.
Yeah.
Trailers used to be an art form in and of themselves. I'm thinking of the original Psycho trailer, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. If anyone wants to watch a good trailer, go watch that. That is a trailer that they approached like they were actually making a piece of art and not just some advertisement.
Mhm.
Um, Trailers these days are just yawn worthy, man. It's hard to even tell if a movie's going to be good or not because all trailers are the same. Just this build with the Inception sound, "Dun,
Mhm.
dun, 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 dun,"
Boom.
and then some one liner, and then boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
It's just like
Yeah.
they're all the same.
Yeah. But no,
But this one,
props to them. Yeah,
yeah,
props to Danny Boyle and the team. Because it really does sell you in the movie. It really does.
yeah.
iPhone cameras aside, it really does. Which again, I will double down. This is a gimmick, and I've seen some behind the scenes like rigs that look like the rigs. I saw this rig for this movie that basically has like 30 iPhones. Like it's
Really?
like 30 iPhones like all together, basically just to get kind of like a panoramic, probably like a panoramic shot, so that instead of having to do this, with a movie camera where you're just kind of like panning, like with this movie, like with the mummy, like when all the shelves fall, instead of having to do that with an iPhone, they just had this like rig that has like literally like 30 iPhones like all next to each other, and all those 30 iPhones have fucking lenses on them, so they all have like lens attachments. So they're not pure like iPhone cameras. They're iPhone cameras with lenses on them, and with like $10,000 rigs. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like
Yeah.
it's just a gimmick, and it's a gimmick that it's seemingly a very expensive one. Because if you're really trying to do this like in a wholesome way, you would just get an iPhone, put it in a fucking stick so that you don't get a lot of handshake, and then you're like, here's the
Yeah.
movie. But no, this movie has like insanely expensive rigs with a bunch of iPhones, with a bunch of lenses, and with a bunch of like horseshit. But I look forward
That's
to
how
it.
they did those shots in The Matrix. They
Yes.
didn't have iPhones, obviously,
No.
but they had just like a rig, like a
Of
loop
cameras.
of all of them, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That's what I thought of.
Yeah,
Interesting,
yeah, very
okay.
similar to that. But on to the next trailer. I want to talk about weapons. Um, and I want to hear what you have to say. So you tell me how you feel about that trailer.
Yeah, so I saw the teaser actually before the trailer,
Yeah.
and I had no context. I opened up YouTube just one afternoon, and on my front page is just weapons teaser
Hmm.
from, I think, Warner Brothers. and I was like, "What the hell's that?" And I clicked on it, and the teaser was interesting, like
Mhm.
just kids running through the darkness with their arms out. Pretty creepy.
Pretty creepy.
It also feels a bit like the director or the writers or whatever being like, what could be creepy and uncanny looking, And I don't know, it just feels a little like weird, but the teaser was decent enough.
Yeah, I mean, from a marketing
Um,
perspective, you want to it's trying to sensationalize, right, or like sensationalize all this stuff. Like just get
yeah, that'll probably
clicks.
be a TikTok
Oh,
trend,
100%.
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get release dates on all these too.
Yeah, no,
So
this one's
Predator
releasing in
Badlands, we
August
got
8th.
November. Okay.
Yeah.
August 8th for weapons.
Yes.
Predator Badlands is November
November.
7th.
And then 28
What's
years later
28
is this
years
month.
later?
I think the 20th,
Oh,
right? 20th of June or
oh,
something like that?
hell yes. Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fucking movies out that I wanna see right now,
Yeah.
which it's so funny because like, during the spring and winter, there's, like,
No, it's
nothing.
a movie
Like
graveyard.
oh, yeah. Like,
But
I remember sometime in February or March, I was seeing something, and my dad and I were, like, talking about, um I think my dad and I went to see something, I can't remember what it was, but, oh, it was Sinners, and we were kinda discussing the benefits of the Regal Unlimited thing,
mhm.
and I was just like, "I don't know how often I'd
Yeah,
use
no, that's
that,"
the thing because it's like
But
there's not that
but
many
then
great
now
movies.
this time of year,
Yeah.
I'm kinda like,
It's a
I
time
might get that
thing,
Regal Unlimited."
and they
Like
actually announced again that this is a part of like movie news that a lot of this like film theater like corporations are trying to do a thing where they make it so that like Wednesdays are like half off. They're trying to
Mm,
incentivize people to show up. They want people in movie theaters.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you got okay, yeah, June
June
20th, 28
20th.
years later, and then Weapons, you said August 8th. Yeah, so Weapons, yeah, the teaser was fairly intriguing, I thought, but then, yeah, I saw the full-length trailer when I was at the theater the other day. That was the first time I'd seen the full-length trailer, and, um, it didn't, um, impress me too much.
No,
It
that's how I felt
definitely
too.
felt like a very yeah, it felt like a very, felt very run of the mill,
Yeah,
like the trailer, it just felt like again, it's hard to judge a movie by the trailer,
yeah.
especially, like I said, these days when trailers are just I don't know what they're thinking when they make these things,
You
but they
know,
all like, trailers stink these
you know what
days.
this movie trailer felt like to me? It felt like an M Night Shyamalan movie trailer.
Yes, it did.
And to be
That's a
and you know what's also
that's
interesting about
perfect.
yeah, and I think I don't have anything else to add other than that except for this, that the interesting thing about this movie is like from a pre-production point of view, that apparently Jordan Peele really wanted this movie. He went on like a bidding war for the script, like for the screenplay, and ultimately the
Oh,
director, Zach Cregger, I guess he ended up making it himself. Or I don't know if Peele just went on a bidding war so that he was the one producing it, so it would be produced in house with his production company, even though Kreger would probably still be the director, but he lost the bidding war. It was like apparently like this movie apparently from screenplay was a very hot commodity, and Jordan Peele was so pissed that he lost that bidding war that he fired his manager. He was like, "You fired." Like the guy that lost him that bidding war, he fired him. It's like, dude, fuck you. I guess he wanted this movie so bad he fired that guy. Um,
god
but
damn, dude.
but I say this, because I think it also exemplifies or it accentuates the point that of the M Night Shyamalan thing, because I feel like Peele has become a little bit of like a modern day M Night Shyamalan of sorts. And it's funny that he really wanted this movie because it's such a M Night Shyamalan movie from the trailer, anyway. From the trailer,
It does. I know it does. Yeah, well, just the thing with the kids running with their arms outstretched like that just feels very M. Night Shyamalan.
right? Especially
Out of
because
left
yeah,
field, weird for the sake of
exactly. We're for the sake of
weird.
weird, and because I can remember when The Happening came out and the trailers were out, and it was just like in the trailer, it was just like people like launching themselves off of rooftops, and you'll be like, "Oh, what's that?" So it's like basically the approach of marketing of just making the audience look at something really weird, and then making them ask themselves, "Why? what's that? So
Yeah.
that's so weird. I have to go and see what that's about, just so you can go into the movie theater and be disappointed. Just because of the because of the what is it, the twist. The twist is gonna be that all those kids, they just watched some TV show that told them like, hey, at 11, come out to here, and then they like drug the kids or something. You time stamp this, everybody listening. If that's the twist, come back to this episode.
Yeah. That probably is it, dude. Like some Candle Cove shit.
Yeah,
They all
probably.
watched yeah, they all watched the programming that told them to do that.
Incepted them,
But
yeah.
yeah, and well, the other thing too is like it's the director of Barbarian, and I'm just like, eh. And
Yeah, he failed us
while
once
there is
already.
yeah, and while there's hope that it'll be a movie that's of the quality of the first half of Barbarian,
Yeah.
my gut tells me, especially after watching the official trailer, that it's gonna be more like the second half of Barbarian, which stunk.
What is it that they
Or the
call
last
that?
act of Barbarian, really.
Yeah. What is it that they call that? Subliminal messages. Yeah, it might just be some kind of
Mm,
subliminal messages thing. But
probably
yes.
is.
So,
Seems to be drawing it kinda reminds me of, like, latchkey kids, like, "It's 10 o'clock.
oh,
Do you know where
100%.
your kids are?"
Yeah,
It
yeah.
kinda gives
Oh,
me that
100%.
vibe.
It gives you that. Like 100%. I agree with that. Um, and then moving on, and this is the last trailer we'll cover for this trailer section of this week. What is it? Mean Machine? What's the name of that movie?
Smashing Machine.
Smashing Machine. Mean
That's gonna be
Machine.
good, dude.
Yeah, it's
I think
Smashing
that's gonna be
Machine
good.
with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. This is written and directed by Benny Safdie, which is one half of the Safdie brothers. The other half of the Safdie brothers is actually, I don't know why they did this. I guess they're doing like a Coen Brothers thing where the Coen Brothers like made I forget the name of that movie. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Like they made that, and they
Oh,
were
yeah.
just like, "Oh, we're two separate entities. We're not brothers anymore. You're
Uh
Joel. I'm Ethan, and now we will make movies as Joel and Ethan. Um,
and you tell us, audience, who's
who's
better,
better? Yeah, it's like
and
it's like
we'll
a
go and tell and then the better one is gonna go tell mom.
yeah, it's like a weird thing, right? Because you have um I guess it is, right? It's like who's better? Like we've been making these movies together and gaining success. You'll do one, I'll do one, and then we'll just see. We'll see who makes the No Country for Old Men out of the two of us. But yeah, this is Benny on his own, and his brother Joshua Safdie. His brother's making a movie with Timothy Chalamet, which is called Marty Supreme. Um, so we have that divide. We have Marty Supreme versus the Smashing Machine. The Smashing Machine is gonna come out in October 3rd, and Marty Supreme is gonna come out on December 25th, so on Christmas Day. But what that does is that makes it so that both of these movies, The Rock versus Timothée Chalamet, both of these movies are going to be Oscar contenders come 2026 Oscar season. So we'll see how everything stacks up. We'll see which Safdie is the Safdie. But all of that being said, this looks interesting. It just kind of seems like a it just kind of seems like what's the name of that? A Raging Bull
Oh,
UFC
Reggie Bull, yeah.
kind of movie, with this kind of retro A24, shot on what it seems like cinema ratio, like Academy ratio, like 166 or something. Um, it looks kind of vintage, almost like VHS kind of like look to it. Yeah, it looks sweaty. It looks sad. There's a feeling to it. There's like a Raging Bull, the wrestler feeling to it, like some
Mhm.
spice. Um, I love The Rock. I feel like he has so much potential and so much to offer, and it's great to see him taking roles that are going to challenge him because he is also starring in the next Scorsese movie as some kind of like Hawaiian or like um I don't know, some kind of
Samoan.
like drug lord, like crime guy.
Mm.
So there's a lot of interesting stuff for The Rock in the horizon, and I think he, like Sandler, um, and like Dave Bautista has been doing recently. He's kind of in his I'm a serious actor, give me my Oscar nomination bag. I'm excited, you know. But again, I feel like from the trailer, my prediction of it is gonna be like again just Raging Bull mixed with the wrestler mixed with Safdie Ness, you know.
Yeah. I never thought we'd see The Rock enter that phase, honestly.
He's
I thought he
there.
was just gonna or I didn't think, but I just kind of my brain, I guess, I subconsciously assumed that he would just keep doing Fast and Furious type
Yeah.
movies just forever, but that's cool that he's doing. I have thought in the past, like, it'd be cool to see The
Dude, there's
Rock in,
shots
like, a
here where he looks like
good
Dana
movie.
White.
He does oh my he does, dude.
Like that was like the thing
Holy
that jumped
shit.
the most at me when I watched this trailer. I was like, he looks just like Dana White, and I wonder if that was purposeful.
Dana White had to fight for to he didn't buy the UFC, he had to win a tournament to get it. God damn, dude. Well, it's
um,
about time that, they're making, like, actual MMA movies because like, we've had tons of boxing movies, but
yeah,
the new thing is MMA, like,
it is.
and I'm glad we're gonna be getting a lot of those in the coming years
The Rock
because
looks great in
MMA
this movie too.
UFC is huge.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah. Yeah, I'm looking f I have high hopes for that one,
yeah, I have
I
high
will
hopes.
say.
Like, and I hope that it kind of goes against my intuition, which I feel like I'm maybe pigeonholing it a little bit because that's kind of what I feel like it's gonna be. But I hope that it's not just Raging Bull and the wrestler and some mixed with like some gimmicky like oh VHS like tape look kind of stuff. So I hope it kind of rises above that, and I hope that too
Yeah.
for the sake of The Rock, because I feel like he's tried before to do like really serious like roles and really good movies. Like he tried with Snitch, he tried when he
Yeah.
did Pain and Gain for Zack Snyder. Like he's tried before to be good, and he just hasn't like his performances have turned out, but the movies have been bad. You know, so I hope for his sake that him betting on Benny turns out for him. Because I also feel like that's kind of the next stage in ego. It's like successful wrestler and a successful businessman, and I made a shampoo even though I'm bald. That Maui shampoo that he has or whatever the hell the name of it is. It's like I've been a movie star, but now you know it's like this like ego like pyramid, like I have to be Oscar nominated.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Man, I can't imagine how big my fucking ego would be if I was as big of an actor as The Rock,
Yeah,
dude.
right?
I'd be
Yeah.
oh, fuck. I'd like to think I wouldn't be just an insufferable asshole, but
Yeah, he seems
man,
like a
like
nice guy though, The Rock.
oh, yeah.
Dwayne.
Oh, yeah, yeah, for sure, but
Yeah.
I bet he thinks quite highly of
Oh,
himself.
100%. There's no way he doesn't. There's no way he doesn't
How
think he's
could you
like.
not?
There's no way he doesn't think he's a human. He thinks he's the shit. The Rock
Yeah.
thinks he's the shit. But
Yeah.
that's it for trailers. Tune in next week. Maybe we'll talk about some other ones.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, we still gotta talk about, well, we'll save these for next week, but I actually haven't even watched these trailers, but well, I saw the trailer for Eddington, but I'll talk about that next
Yeah, I
week.
haven't seen that one.
But
I'll watch it next time.
I have to check out the Black Phone 2 trailer. I didn't really love Black Phone, but, we'll see.
Yeah.
And then the Happy Gilmore 2
Oh
trailer,
yeah.
and then the Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein
Oh,
movie
that's right. Yeah, and the PTA
has a
trailer.
trailer.
The trailer for the new PTA movie.
Oh, did that I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll add that. And then I saw a trailer popped up the other day or yesterday for Dexter Resurrection,
I'm
so
not
we'll
watching
see.
that.
Ugh. Oh,
Text me a list
but
of the trailers that you have so that I'll watch them. I'll text you the
alright,
PTA thing.
sounds good, dude.
All right. But moving on, what do you got for us, sir?
Oh yeah, let's do our recaps.
All right.
You wanna go first?
Yeah, I'll go for it. I've not seen any movies since we last spoke, so I don't. So my recap's actually very short. To add some sauce to it, though, I've been reading a book about Rafael Nadal. Rafael Nadal is my favorite tennis player of all time. Won 22 Grand Slam majors. Um, in terms of like the all-time rankings, he's the number two of all time behind Djokovic. So he's technically the second best of all time, the second goat. But to me, he's in my heart, he's the best of all time. I love him. And so I've been reading a book by Christopher Clary. That's the name of the author. He wrote a book titled Rafael Nadal the Warrior, which I've really been enjoying that book. I'm about halfway through it. And it's really just kind of chronicling his rise into the game from when he was a kid, being a prospect, and like the things that were really interesting about him, his relationship with his uncle Tony, which trained him from when he was 3 years old. He trained Rafa to be a tennis player, and obviously then he became the second greatest player of all time. And his success, his rivalries with Federer and Djokovic, great read. So I recommend it. I also want to read his book Rafa, but I'll get to that one. But I'm reading The Warrior right now, so I recommend that for anybody who's a fan of athletes and a fan of kind of like sports legends, a fan of people who have achieved as much as this guy did. He played for such a long time. He retired now. He's 38 years old. And again, he achieved the second most of all time in the sport. So he's a fascinating guy. So I recommend that for anybody who's curious about him. And then on the other end, I listened to two albums. One of them was the album Imaginal Disc by Magdalena Bay. I don't know if you've heard about this. The album looks like this. It's like a disc is being inserted into her brain.
I've not seen that.
Yeah, great
What kind of
album.
music?
It was kind of one of the hype albums of last year. Like if like last year had a handful of hype albums, Charlie XCX with Brat, and Imaginal Disc, Magdalena Bay was one of them. Especially because it's in the same genre of PC hyper pop, electro pop music. So there's a lot of that in this album. There's a lot of just kind of again, just very 2020s hyper pop and electronic music. A lot of the same things. Somebody like Pink Panthers is also in the same genre of music.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like that kind of music, I would say go and give this a shot. Especially, and I think this is kind of the standout thing about this album, is that it incorporates a lot of kind of production and sampling and references to 2000s kind of like funky, psychedelic or jazzy sounds. Like there's songs in this album that sound like they're like they sampled like a Gran Turismo like jazz track, and it's like that's what's like at the bottom of this like track sampling like of the stack of sounds. So that's really interesting. I though didn't love it. I thought it was really good, so I recommend it, but I didn't love it, and I actually thought that Charlie XCX's Brat is actually a better album than this one. For all the Brat haters, I thought Brat was better. But this is a good album though, and the songs in this album, unlike in the Brat album, get a lot of room to kind of flesh themselves out because he has like 5, 4, almost 6 minute long songs here. So the songs really kind of come to a very gratifying arc because they really get a lot of meat to develop themselves. A lot of the songs in the Charlie album are just like 2.5 minutes long, but they're great. Even if they're 2.5 minutes, great.
Yeah, the only one I think I obviously I heard 360. That was like the big
Yeah,
hit from last year. I
yeah,
like that song. That
yeah,
was good, like for a pop song. Because I don't love pop music, but I do like that kind of pop music. Like Pink Panther, some of her stuff's pretty cool.
yeah. Well,
I like. I might have to check out Charlie XCX because it's like not usually my bag, but I do like to try to give all genres besides country, a shot.
yeah,
No, I've given country a shot.
yeah.
Grew
Um,
up around it.
But to make a correction, the book by Christopher Clary is called "The Warrior, Rafa Nadal and His Kingdom of Clay." That's the name of the book. I've also read the book by him, The Master, which is about Roger Federer, which is also a great read. But moving on, the second album that I listened to, and that's the end of my recap, was the Don Killuminati, The 7 Day Theory by Makaveli, which is just Tupac. So I listened to the
Oh yeah, I
Makaveli
was gonna
album.
say that's Tupac, right?
Yeah, listen to the Makaveli album, which is 12 songs. Oh, and by the way, for the Imaginal Disc, the Magdalena Bay album, I recommend Death and Romance, Image, and Tunnel Vision. I recommend those. I really like those. And also Cry for Me. Cry for Me is really good. And so for Makaveli, again, another really good album. I didn't love this, or I didn't love the Magdalena Bay album. But I thought both of them were really good and really worth listening to them. For Tupac, just classic mid to late 90s West Coast hip hop, fused with Tupac's, legendary and iconic voice, his delivery, his lyricism, and also fused with a lot of his foresight, because Tupac had become a leader and a thought leader for his community at this point in time, and a lot of that is very clear in this album. Even though a lot of the songs here are also just dedicated to shooting bullets, lyrical bullets at his ups, so there's a lot of that. But I recommend Hail Mary, that's a classic off of this album. To Live and Die in LA is great. Blasphemy is great. And also, I actually don't like Me and My Girlfriend, so I don't like that song. But also, Crazy. I liked all those songs. And that's it for my recap.
Come with me,
Hail
Hail
Mary,
Mary.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. What do you have now?
What do we have here now? Do you want to run now?
No,
Classic.
no, no,
Uh,
no, yeah, classic.
I ain't a killer, but don't push me. Um, okay, yeah. So my recap, as far as movies go, we got sorry guys.
Yeah.
Saw a couple things. I watched Woman of the Hour
That's that
on
movie,
Netflix.
that Anna Kendrick movie, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
starring Anna Kendrick, and then also directed by Anna
You've been on
Kendrick,
an
and
Anna
she did her.
Kendrick like little binge, haven't you?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, just oddly, it's so funny. She is there a more typecast actor of our generation than Anna
Well,
Kendrick?
that's a movie by herself. Did she like typecast herself?
Pretty much, I guess.
That's
But I'm just
interesting.
saying, like, as far as how many, like, she plays the same character in every movie. She
Yeah,
plays it well, but she's the same person in every single movie that
yeah,
she's in. It's so funny. Just like the like kind of clumsy like nice girl next door, it's like the same person, but yeah, she was very good. She did a good job with the directing of this movie too. But yeah, it was interesting. It kind of a suspense thriller, very premise was kind of Hitchcockian, I want to say. And Yeah, kind of a thriller taking place on a late night show, which reminded me a bit of Late Night with the Devil. I like that format. That's kind of a cool format, combining late night TV with something horrifying.
yeah.
This movie's not a straight horror film, but it definitely has horror elements, I would say. Um, Based on a true story too. But yeah, I gave it a 6 out of 10. Like it was pretty good, like slightly above average movie, I thought.
Yeah.
Great performance from what was the guy? Daniel Zavato, who played the serial killer guy, very well. Really sold that. Just very just creepy ass dude. That performance was Oscar worthy. He sold me
Hmm.
on that. Just the way like people like that blend in, but
Yeah.
also you know there's something a little weird and quirky about him, but he blends in otherwise pretty well. And then that switch flips, just really good. But yeah, good movie. I liked it. And then I watched. Oh, I watched one of Tarantino's favorite movies, a movie called Rolling Thunder from the
Mm.
'70s. Have you heard of that or
Mm-mm.
seen it?
I've not seen that. I've heard of it though, but I haven't seen it.
It's one of Tarantino. That's the I hadn't even heard of it until I read recently that it's among Tarantino's like top 5 films of all time. And obviously, like I think he puts like Taxi Driver, Good, Bad, and the Ugly up there, and I'm like, of course I've seen those.
Yeah.
And then I see Rolling Thunder. I'm like, what the hell's that? And I look at it, and the plot seems intriguing. And he said it's a hugely influential film, so I'm like, shit, I want to watch this. I love Tarantino, so I watched it. I will say that it's definitely in that camp of what I like to call Punisher prototypes. So, like, when I say Punisher prototypes, I mean Marvel's The Punisher.
Hmm.
Because what I don't want to be mistaken here, but when was the Punisher? For when did he first come out? Like in the 80s? Let me see. When was the character
This is
created? He was in an issue of Spider-Man, I think was his first appearance. Let's see here.
the Punisher.
Yeah, 74. So this movie
Johnny
came a little bit
Bravo.
after the Punisher, but I don't know how fleshed out the Punisher's backstory was
Yeah.
at that point. So I will say this is like part of a micro genre of movies that I call like Punisher prototypes, which are basically stories of, either a former lawman or a lawman, or sometimes it could just be a regular guy or a war
Taking
veteran.
action into his own hands with the criminal world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And obviously I think the crown jewel of this micro genre would be Taxi Driver. Like
Yeah, for
that's the
sure.
crown jewel. That's like the cream of the crop as far as like Punisher prototypes go.
Yeah.
This phrase I've coined, and please use it.
Mhm.
And audience, let's make this a thing.
Yeah,
And Rolling Thunder definitely.
we're really on our what's his name? What's that guy? Cloud of Learning, what's his name? Rob Egger. Really on our Rob Egger
Oh, a bigger,
bag
yeah, coining
with
phrases
coining
left,
shit.
just left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the characters in this movie. No, so yeah, you got Taxi Driver's the cream of the crop of this micro genre, and then you obviously you have the Death Wish movies. Um, you got a lot of these, and Rolling Thunder, it definitely falls into that category. And Rolling Thunder, I thought was I again this movie 6 out of 10. I thought it was slightly above average. It's one of those movies where the first half is a lot better than the second half. I kind of realized too that action movies there wasn't nowadays there is an expectation with action movies that they are written in to feel like a video game
Mhm.
where it's continually escalating, you know, enemies until we get to the final boss. That's how like every modern action movie is written to some degree. And when I watched Rolling Thunder, I kind of realized there wasn't that expectation back then because there's a lot of meandering. Like in the second half of the movie, there's this weird kind of romantic subplot that I didn't think quite worked. And I was like, all right, shouldn't he be trying to find the people that killed his family? What the hell's going on? Like, why are we doing this? And yeah, it was interesting because it just kind of changed the way I view um, action films, I guess. Because it was like but you look at something like Taxi Driver, and Taxi Driver's not I wouldn't consider that an action film,
No.
so and it almost seemed like this movie did, kind of a bait and switch where at first you think like, "Oh, yeah, here it comes. It's gonna be this, blood for blood action movie," and then it turns into a weird kinda Taxi Driver thing where he has this weird kind of relationship with this woman who idolizes him, but it just was meandering. But then the cool final shootout that sort of ties things up nicely. But yeah, like the plot of the movie is like after his family gets killed in the log line, it says then he tags an old war buddy basically to go help him take revenge. He doesn't tag his old war buddy to help him until the last 10 minutes. The last 10 minutes.
That's really
Like, he
funny.
hunts one of the guys down,
Yeah.
and then it's 45 minutes of romantic subplot, and then the last 10
Everyone
minutes,
forgets what it's
it's
doing.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Holy shit, I was lied to. I've been bamboozled, dude."
Yeah.
Um,
It's like that movie
man,
that we watched,
conned.
that baseball movie. I even forget the fucking name of it now.
Oh, Major League?
Major League, yeah.
Yeah, fuck that movie. I love its poster, but fuck it.
Yeah.
But anyway, great final shootout, though, I will say. And then wrapping up here. Oh, and then I watched Bring Her Back a few days ago. The Talk to Me directors, uh, their newest movie.
Yeah.
Uh, it's two brothers, I think, in a
Two
van.
brothers in a
Um,
band.
yeah,
Yeah, it is two brothers though.
I wasn't wowed by Talk to Me. Like it's made. Talk to Me was made in a slightly above average way as far as camera work, blocking, directing goes, and editing, and just all the technical elements of film that you want to see. But I thought the story was, especially in the second half, it just lost me. That seems to be a common theme with a lot of movies. I think we've all been victims many times a year of movies that start good in the first half and then they shit the bed. And talk to me, like the climax of the movie is a scene that takes place in broad daylight on the side of a busy highway, and I'm like, I'm I'm not scared right now, you know, like I'm not scared,
Mhm.
nor am I entertained. Like, just the setting, that setting is not conducive to scares or to a horror film. And I felt kind of there's more problems, but I don't wanna go into them. But I felt kinda similar more or less with Bring Her Back. I thought it was about the same quality as Talk to
It's
Me.
funny because they both
This
have like great ratings. Like this has a 90% Rotten Tomatoes rating.
No, I know. I don't get what people are seeing because I think it's just to me, it just seems like it's because these guys are part of this new camp of like we're finally getting new Wes Cravens basically.
Mhm,
We were kind of missing that in the 2000s where we got still some good horror movies, but there weren't dedicated directors that were dedicated like, yeah, that guy's a horror director.
mhm.
Besides like James Wan, there pretty much was nobody else. And yeah, man, the storyline was just convoluted and weird. I mean, I put all the pieces together at the end, but when you put the pieces together, it doesn't feel satisfying. The puzzle pieces of the mystery or whatever. The villain's plan and how it's executed just stretches believability. How she would be able to pull this off. Um, I wasn't scared really. There were a couple creepy scenes, but and then it just tries this to tug at your heartstrings too at the end, and just I just was not impressed. I would go into it more thoroughly if we had more time, but we're approaching the end of the show, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna leave it at that. But I was not impressed. I thought it was average. I didn't think it was horrible, but just like a 5 out of 10. It's like
yeah.
whatever. Um, again, it was like a run of the mill like rent on video 2000s horror movie, but in the skin of an A24 style, like art, well made film,
Yeah.
but just on a surface level. So anyway, um, and then yeah, we could talk about How I Met Your Mother next week, but
Yeah,
I
that's
finished How I Met Your Mother,
right. You
and
know
let's talk about that next week. We'll
Okay.
talk about my thoughts on the final season. Um, And then, I just wanted to say real quick, I've been watching South Park a little bit lately just, to wind down before bed, and dude, I watched the, Tiger Woods episode the other day
I don't know if I remember this
about, like,
one.
sex
Oh,
addiction.
yes,
It's when his
yes.
wife's, like, beating the shit out of him with the golf club or
Yeah.
whatever. "You
Yeah, I
motherfucker!"
remember that. I think about that funnily enough, because I saw that episode even before I even knew who Tiger Woods was. So every time I see him, I associate him with that because that came first.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, Tiger Woods.
That episode's brilliant though, like the way they tackle men's male sexuality. They're
Mhm,
like, "Oh my god, it seems like there's a sex addiction epidemic among men that when they get money, they start having sex with beautiful women." It's
mhm.
brilliant. Those guys, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, are satire geniuses,
Yeah.
dude. Um, and then finally, to wrap it up, I read a novella called Hellmouth by Giles Kristian, um, and it's basically a medieval horror uh, thing, dark fantasy horror mashup, which is very much my bag. That's the genre that I write. So, but yeah, it's basically just a group of um, medieval mercenaries who stumble upon a gateway to hell.
Mhm.
So very much my shit. It was good. I liked it. And that's it for me.
All right. Well, I guess we have arrived at the end of this episode of Film Tangents. For the Mummy fans, we gave like a very meaty like hour, I think hour plus like discussion on that movie. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to dig into with that. But for next week, this is what I have, sir. Um, and I hope you appreciate this. I'm throwing it a curveball. I'm doing something you've done before, but I haven't, which is usually the case with Film Tangents. I'm usually like very kind of like hunker down, like let's watch movies. I'm going to make us watch a TV show because when it comes to the summer, always like I have two modes in the summer. Like you've talked about how you think about this kind of like blockbuster, kind of action horror movies, Alien or Jaws or The Terminator and stuff like that. And for me, yes, the feeling is either animation because I grew up like watching all these animated movies, or
Hmm.
big live action 2000 movies. But I'm gonna go into the animation realm, so I'm gonna make us watch an animated TV show. You probably know where I'm going. Do you know where I'm going?
I think so.
Okay, because I'm going
Maybe.
us to
I
watch
might.
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh shit. That's so dude, my girlfriend and I watched the first episode
Really?
like last week. Yeah.
Good, good. Because it's not even the
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
It's not even the first episode I want us to watch. I want us to watch the first 5 episodes. So you're already ahead.
Okay.
So I want us to watch episodes 1 through 5. Which it's each episode is about 20 minutes. If you take
Yeah.
the credits and the opening out, it's probably like 18, 17 minutes. So it's probably adds to like an hour and 30, an hour and 40 minutes overall to watch all 5 episodes. But I love this series. Every time the summer
Yeah.
comes around, I get this like feeling like I have to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. I've rewatched the entire series about 3 or 4 times at this point. So I want us to watch Avatar. I want you to watch the first 5 episodes. It's good that you're already getting there because, um, like with How I Met Your Mother, we'll be able to talk about this. I thank your girlfriend because seemingly she has a lot of this. She grew up with a lot of the same kind of childhood shows that I did. She's already
Yeah. Her
introducing you.
cat her cat's name is Sokka,
Yeah,
so
good. She's already introducing you to all these like things that I never got the chance to while we were in college. So
hell yeah.
yeah, next week, everybody tune in. We're breaking things up. We're not even watching a live action movie or a TV show. An animated show, first 5 episodes, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Be here because that will be next time on Film Tangents.